Hello, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled board meeting for January 11th, 2021, our first board meeting of the new year. We have not started yet. We are actually waiting for a quorum of the board to show up in person. We have a couple board members that we are waiting for. We anticipate that they will be here in person by 3 p.m., and as soon as that happens, we will start. So I just want to let people in the public know that we will be back at 3 p.m. So give us some time, and we'll be right back with you to commence the meeting, the work session first, and then going into the public comment and community and the legislative session. So we'll be back at 3 p.m. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year. I apologize for the delay. Thank you again for joining us for the January 11th meeting of the Atlanta Board of Education. As I mentioned to folks who were watching before, we were delayed. We wanted to make sure that we had a quorum of the board in person so that we can do the board's business. And we now have that quorum, so we can begin with today's meeting. I want to remind folks that while we are meeting face-to-face, I want to assure everyone that we continue to maintain public health protocols, including social distancing, as we move forward in responding safely and appropriately to the COVID-19 pandemic as the district works towards a return to in-person instruction. I want to make sure everyone knows that this board wanted to take the lead in doing so by returning our face-to-face engagement with sufficient mitigation strategies in place. In this auditorium, we have distancing and limited groups in the auditorium for those who can see that. Again, it's great to start the school year, the new year, sorry, not the school year, the new year on a footing as it is always good to see people in person, those on the staff and on the board. So hello, everyone, and Happy New Year to Atlanta Public Schools. I know that we took a couple week break for the holidays, and I know my son was excited to get back on Zoom and see his teachers and see his classmates, and I know that all of you were excited to come back and see each other as well. Mr. Gaither, will you please call the roll for today's meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Representing Educational District 1, Ms. Leslie Grant.
Present.
Representing Educational District 2, Mr. Reto Baldwin.
Present.
Representing Educational District 3, Ms. Michelle Olympiades. Representing Educational District 4, Ms. Nancy Meister.
Present.
Representing Educational District 5, Ms. Erica Mitchell.
Present.
Representing Educational District 6 and Board Vice Chair, Ms. Isha Collins. Representing Educational District at Large Seat 7, Ms. Candace Wood Jackson.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 8, Ms. Cynthia Briscoe Brown.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 9 and Board Chair, Mr. Jason Estevez.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gaither. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the December 7th and December 14th board meetings.
So moved. Second.
It's been properly moved by Isha Collins, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for the January 11th board meeting?
So moved. Second.
It's been properly moved by Isha Collins, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Herring, will you please bring forward the work session items?
Good afternoon, Board Chair Estevez, and thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 4 presentations today.
Turn on your mic.
Mike.
Is that better? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 4 presentations today. First, Dr. Katika Lovett, Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, and I will provide an update on the Phase 2 of Return Plus Learn, focusing on our plans for reopening later this month for in-person instruction. This presentation will include our regular COVID-19 public health update. Dr. Angela King-Smith, our Chief Strategy Officer, will follow with an update on our renewal application regarding our charter system operating model and about cluster planning. Following her, we will have another strategic plan update, this one regarding aspects of systems and resources. For this presentation, we will hear from Femi Aina, Executive Director of Information Technology and Strategy and Planning, Dr. Aaliyah Henderson-Rosser, Executive Director of Instructional Technology, and Michael Lamond, Executive Director of Data and Information Group. And finally, Lisa Bracken, our Chief Financial Officer, will close our presentations with the monthly financial update, which includes an update on the fiscal year 2022 budget development process. So we will begin with Phase 2 return updates, which is inclusive of both me and Dr. Katika Lovett, our Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. Thank you for joining us at the mic, Dr. Lovett. I will begin. So first, our presentation today, I am pleased to be joined with Dr. Lovett for this update. Based on the advice of experts and other guidance, we began reopening district offices today and will continue to prepare to reopen our school buildings later this month. Throughout this difficult process, we have gathered a wide range of input, and we strive to ensure that we effectively communicate all details of reopening as well as health, safety, and well-being issues. With this update, we want to help everyone understand the factors around reopening, review the schedule, and explain our recommended process for the second semester. I should note that these timelines and updates are for our traditional schools. Families with students in our charter and partner schools should listen to their school leadership for further details. I will also present the plan for how APS will provide learning options during the second semester, as well as how district staff are returning to in-person work. Additionally, Atlanta Public Schools will provide our families with a choice in the teaching and learning model that best meets the needs of their students at this time. First, let me invite Dr. Lovett to review health, safety, and well-being considerations as we move into phase 2 of Return Plus Learn. Dr. Lovett.
Thank you, Dr. Herring, and good afternoon to everyone and all of our members of the Board of Education. I will start here with our levels of community transmission for Fulton and DeKalb counties. Every month we have done a public health check-in, and this month is no different. We will start here with the numbers, and this is from January the 8th, and I'll also be sharing the numbers as of today, which is January the 11th. You'll see here for January the 8th for Fulton County, the levels of cases per 100K, or that level of community transmission, was at 691 per cases within Fulton County, or per 100,000 residents within the county of Fulton. And for DeKalb County, you also see that number there being 609. Now, as of today, as of January 11th, and that update does come out daily at 2:50 p.m., the update as of today for Fulton County is 809 cases per 100K, and for DeKalb County, 710 cases per 100,000 residents. Now, we start the presentation by talking about the levels of community transmission because we want to center our strategies around how we're going to go about safely mitigating the virus within the district and how we're going to go about ensuring that we have some awesome protocols in place for those who need testing, as well as some opportunities for vaccinations, which I will be sharing today. Here you have the start of our COVID-19 comprehensive testing plan. Now, in the previous presentations, we've talked about this was something that was forthcoming, and I'm very excited to share the plan with you today. You will see that the plan is a district-wide plan, and it is threefold. And the plan involves our school-based health clinics and centers, as well as a partnership with an organization, CORE, and then a partnership with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and Emory University. So I will go through the distinct pieces of each of the plan right now. The school-based health clinics, of course, we have school-based health clinics within the district, and you see the list here. Those are at Whiteford Early Learning Academy, Toomer Elementary School, King Middle School, Dobbs Elementary, Hollis, and Miles Elementary School. Those are cluster-based testing options that are available for the Jackson, South Atlanta, Washington, and Mays cluster. And those testing options are available for both students, staff, as well as families who need access to COVID testing. Now, in addition to that, we also have CORE. CORE is an organization that is run within the community. It is community-based testing, and it is open to students, staff, and families within the city of Atlanta. The unique thing about CORE that we're very excited about, CORE offers in-home, at school, and worksite testing options on demand. In other words, if we have individuals who are referred for testing, who are feeling those symptoms, who need access to testing and maybe can't get to a testing site, here's an opportunity to get testing to them, and that is with the organization CORE. They also offer resource coordination. And finally, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and Emory University. This is also a partnership we are very excited about. We are calling this our flagship testing location. This is unique just to Atlanta Public Schools. And here we will be offering testing 5 days a week, 4 to 5 days a week. It will be at an APS school site location. Right now that location is being determined, but we are seeking to prioritize a site within the cluster where we have seen some high trends in terms of COVID. So we're looking at 2 sites currently. This is no cost to families, and it also involves our wonderful partners in the pediatric care as well as health education. So very excited to have Children's Healthcare and Emory University as a part of our COVID testing plan. So if you see the three pieces together, we are covering the entire district. We wanted to be very specific in that we wanted to provide testing that would be available for everyone. And so here's how we're going to get that done. The next piece that I'm excited to share with you today is around COVID-19 vaccinations. And you'll see here the vaccination plans that we are working on in collaboration with our local Board of Health, Fulton County Board of Health. So in partnership with Fulton County, we have begun offering vaccinations, or Fulton County has begun offering vaccinations. Those vaccinations have actually already begun for phase 1A, and you'll see the phases there at the bottom. But the purpose of the plan, I just want to talk a brief moment about the purpose of the vaccinations. Simply to reduce rates of transmission. That is primarily what the vaccinations are about, minimizing disruption, maintaining our essential employee capacity, and of course, supporting the health and well-being of all of our employees. So employees will have the option to opt into the vaccinations if they so choose, and they will be administered vaccinations at the local Board of Health. You'll see here phase 1A, and I put the star there because we are currently in phase 1A, and that involves school nurses and actually school resource officers. Very excited to share that we have had school resource officers who have also received the vaccination already, in addition to getting started with our school nurses. And there's also an opportunity for staff who are above the age of 65, and that is also an opportunity with Fulton County for them to receive the vaccination as well. Phase 1B will involve the rest of our school staff and our district staff. You'll see teachers are in phase 1B, as well as administrators, our board members, our support staff, nutrition, facilities, staff persons who work in transportation, so on and so forth, will be in phase 1B. Now, we don't have the timeline just yet, but we are excited to know that we are moving up in the phases. Previously, we were in phase C for the rest of the educational staff, so very excited that that information is more timely and forthcoming. The next piece, just want to talk very briefly about tracking cases within APS. Now, you've heard me share some information in the past about how we go about tracking cases, but as we are returning to an in-person environment in the workplace as well as the schools, just want to make sure that we are sharing this kind of in a concise way. And so if you think about tracking is simply 4 steps here within the district. Those 4 steps involve reporting, tracing, notifying and informing, and finally quarantining. So in the event that a student or a staff person receives that positive test result, they must first do the notification. They will notify the school, or they'll notify the workplace. Once we receive that information via the school or at the office location, we work directly with our local boards of health. It's important to note that's Fulton County and DeKalb County, and they conduct the contact tracing. Here in the school district, we do something we call case investigation, which is where we assist with the contact tracing, but we are not contact tracers within the school district. So we assist with gathering that information for the local board of health, and then based on that guidance that's provided from our board of health, as well as our health services department, notifications are sent to our impacted staff, students, and families. If an individual is found to have been in close contact, those persons, of course, are then required to quarantine, and those persons receive special notification that has been designated from our health services department. And finally, so I've talked a bit about vaccinations, I've talked about tracking. Here's one way in which we're going to help manage this, as well as give us an opportunity to share information within our school community. And that is our COVID-19 data dashboard. Now, I've shared previously that we have posted a dashboard and we've gotten started with that, but our dashboard is getting better. We are very excited to share that we are redesigning our dashboard in efforts to streamline the contact tracing and the contact investigation or case investigation, as well as our ongoing reporting efforts. And the new tool is going to include public-facing weekly reports that are based on those self-reported cases. It's going to also include information regarding staff as well as student data updates, along with some additional details. Things such as the number of close contacts. We know that's critically important as we're looking at outbreaks and as we're determining how we want to go about mitigation measures within our school and within our workplaces. So looking at numbers of close contacts, looking at numbers of persons who are quarantined, and more. So very excited as well about the updates coming to our new COVID-19 data dashboard, and we are seeking to launch the dashboard in conjunction with the Start to In-Person Learning. So those are the updates that I have today. I will turn it back over to Dr. Herring at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Lovett. I want to thank both our Department of Student Services and the Data and Information Group for this collaboration and for enabling us to provide this critical report by way of the data dashboard to our community every week. We look forward to its release. If you recall from the last board meeting, we outlined the second phase of our Return Plus Learn plan around 4 concepts: plan, process, people, and protect. Today, we officially began moving into phase 2. If we look at the timeline, district office staff began returning to work in person today based on schedules established by each department's supervisor. These were reflective of staggered schedules, and they also honor the need to monitor capacity within our buildings. School-based staff returned to work in person on Tuesday, January 19th, 2021, to prepare for in-person learning according to the proposed schedule of 4 days per week in person, with Wednesdays as a telework day. To support the return to work, procedures for reporting COVID-19 exposure or positive testing have been implemented, including notifying affected staff. Masks and PPE have been provided, and workplace safety protocols must be strictly followed by staff working in person. Human Resources provided guidance to employees regarding leave eligibility options. Employees unable to return to work may request new or amended telework or leave arrangements. And finally, child care resources are being developed, i.e., for example, reimbursements and on-site child care. As part of the phased-in approach for reopening, we will offer 3 instructional delivery models. 1, the site-based virtual learning model. 2, face-to-face options. And 3, still Atlanta Virtual Academy. The phased-in approach includes teacher preparation days and phasing in elementary students first, followed by secondary students. That takes us to process, which involves a deliberate schedule in how we bring staff and students back into our buildings. Starting with elementary students, we are looking at the following schedule: January 25th, pre-K through 2nd and special education. Specifically, low incidence, pre-K through 5, in-person learning options begins. February 1st, grades 3 through 5, in-person learning option would begin. For middle and high school students, we will follow this schedule. January 25th, special education, low incidence, grades 6 through 12. The in-person learning option would begin. February 1st, grades 6, 9, 10, in-person learning option would begin. And February 4th, grades 7, 8, 11, 12. We will continue to provide asynchronous Wednesdays, which are more plainly described as independent learning days, for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year. We started these in December to serve as teacher planning days for our anticipated reopening. During our activities on asynchronous Wednesdays, you can anticipate students doing independent learning and intervention, staff participating in professional learning and student intervention, and teachers having the opportunity for planning and prep for simultaneous teaching. In addition, health and operational protocols will be in place on Wednesdays. As a reminder, district meal deliveries will be scheduled for Wednesdays, deep cleaning for buildings, and an ongoing opportunity, given our comprehensive COVID testing model, will take place. That provides an update for Return Plus Learn Phase 2. My staff and I are prepared to review or discuss any part of plan, process, people, and protects as you wish to discuss. I do want the Atlanta Public Schools community to know that we are constantly updating our Return Plus Learn website at www.atlantapublicschool.us/reopen, which also hosts our comprehensive on-course guide. And an on-course guide is designed to provide you as much information as possible that we have been sharing, and a bit more detailed information regarding reopening, information both relevant to parents and students and staff, and also health and safety guidelines, and even more. I encourage members of our community to remain engaged and informed while also staying healthy and safe, and staying in tune to further information that would be updates relative to reopening. That completes our formal presentation. We are open to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Herring. With that, I will open it up to questions from board members. Looking around. Cynthia?
Do you want to check with our colleagues on Zoom?
I have them.
Okay, all right. Just a bunch of sort of random questions here. First, do we have any plans for routine testing of employees or students at schools? I know that was something we discussed in the past, and particularly with reference to the asynchronous Wednesdays, giving us a break to get test results back.
Okay. Hi there. Thank you for that question. At this time, the testing plan involves referred testing. So it's testing those individuals who, through the health screening process, have been identified for testing. In other words, they have identified either a symptom or they've been identified as an exposure. Maybe they've come in contact with someone who's been identified as having COVID in the workplace or in the school site. And so we're going with that route to begin with. So at this time, we have not come up with a routine testing process. That is not the first part of this testing phase that we have designed at this time.
Okay. Second, can you speak a little bit to the care rooms, which were not in this presentation, but I think are an important part of our COVID protections?
Yes, thank you again for that question. So the care rooms are you're right, they're a very important part of the mitigation strategies as we're thinking about returning to the in-person learning environment. So the care rooms are designed for those students or those staff persons who, as we're going through the health screening process, are identified as either A, having a temperature or having some other symptom that comes out in the health screening process. And the care room is designed for us to safely isolate those individuals until they can be safely transported home. So, of course, in the event of a child, we're talking about having them in a safe space where they are monitored, where they are cared for until their parents can then come and retrieve them. If it's a staff person, the first thing is going to be obviously in the event that they can transport themselves home immediately, we're going to ask them to do that. But if they're in a situation where they need a moment to get themselves together prior to leaving, they're going to be safely also transported to the isolation room or to the care room where they can be safely isolated until they're able to leave as well. So that's the whole design of the care room. It's just a safe space to safely isolate them from other persons within the school population so that we're not transmitting disease unbeknownst to us.
And those are staffed by our school nurses?
Those are staffed by individuals designated by the principals. So in some cases, we're looking at school nurses. In other cases, it may be non-instructional paraprofessionals. There are individuals who have been designated as monitors by the principals within the building. Now, the oversight and the overall management is by the school nurses. So school nurses still very much are playing a major role in terms of care rooms as they are for all things health-related things within the building. But the actual monitor for the room may not be the school nurse. It's individuals designated by the principal.
And I know that we have the results of the intent to return declarations. Do we have results on employee return in person at this time? And if so, do we have any breakout of that?
So we have been able to close out our telework request as of this past week and have been able to identify for the vast majority of our staff where we will have been able to say we've approved telework. I will get with HR, Board Member Briscoe Brown, and update us with more detailed information relative to the intent with staffing. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Are you wanting to see specific numbers per, can you be what are you trying to?
I'm
terms of
interested in the percentage of employees who requested telework and the percentage whose requests were granted.
I believe with a sense of accuracy, with our 3,000 teacher workforce, maybe right at about 10% have been for those that have been reviewed, approved. I don't want to misrepresent that number, so I will absolutely circle back to make sure I get that with a specific number from Human Resources.
Okay. And one more question, and then I'm done, which is a follow-on to that. When will parents find out whether their children's teachers are going to be virtual or in person?
So it is we've set a goal of being able to communicate that to parents as of January 15th. That is the goal at this time.
Okay, so they would then be able to know that well before children end up going back in person.
Yes, ma'am. So if for some reason it was not the 15th, but that is our goal, it would still be beforehand, before the 25th. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Nancy?
Hey, I don't really have a question. I just have some thoughts I want. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I think this is really hard. It's been hard on kids, parents, teachers, and the administration. And I think we all need to recognize that the numbers are up. And I know that most of the parents that wanted their kids to go back were in my district, and I will advocate for that. I don't necessarily agree with it, but everybody should have a choice. But what I do want to say to them is we're so close to the finish line, and right now, I think that I really just hope everybody rethinks it for the sake of the teachers and the staff and the kids and the healthcare workers that are in the school. This has been difficult. It's been a difficult year, but a couple more weeks, maybe a month or two, hopefully we're going to turn the corner. And I just don't want to see a lot of us get sick for the sake of just rushing it. So I commend the system. They have done a great job with the numbers, with working up the plan, the principles, making it all work out. Parents want to go back and want to see it be successful. I just want everybody to remember we're just like a couple weeks away or a couple months away, and we've gone through this for so long, and we're all here to talk about it. So I just had to say that. I'm sorry.
Isha?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions and things for consideration. On slide 4, I think, as we talked about the cluster-based testing, just for consideration to be given to possibly the thorough cluster as well. That's part of the, part of the south side of the city, but in communities that have been heavily impacted, would love to see us be able to offer that to communities on the south, our southwest communities. And then on slide 5, in regards to the vaccination part, the rollout, so 1A and 1B. I think my question kind of go towards, are we considering, what is the communication strategy about pushing the vaccine, particularly for staff, or is there any coordinated effort with Fulton County to be able to provide those vaccinations or the ability to get vaccinated in APS facilities versus having to go to another, go to another facility?
Okay, and thank you for that question, Board Member Collins. I'll start with the first comment in terms of looking at ways to expand more of the cluster-based testing. These sites that you see there are where we have existing school-based health clinics, but we are certainly looking at other opportunities for getting into some other clusters. We also have our Ronald McDonald vans, which actually serve some other clusters, in fact, serve the Thero cluster. And so that's one thing that we're also looking at as an option, too, to really help us in the expansion, even of getting more pushed out into the clusters. So that's one piece. In terms of the vaccinations, I'll tell you that actually right now we have a meeting that's happening with health services in Fulton County so that we can look at how to make the vaccination even more accessible to our staff. As it currently stands, with the way that the vaccination has to be handled in terms of how it has to be stored and administered, it is currently something that they can only do within the local Board of Health. We don't have the capacity for the storage nor the administration within our schools currently. Now, that's not to say that it will not be something in the future, but in terms of the refrigeration and the other kind of, I won't go into the health-related, matters in terms of the storage piece, but that is something for consideration. They've also even expressed, if we could get to that place, maybe the possibility of training our school nurses to do that vaccination. That's something that may happen in the future. I don't know how quickly into the future, but that is something under current conversation. It is our goal to get it out as soon as possible. possible. Again, we don't have the timeline for 1B, but that is something that Fulton County is working, to get it done as soon as possible. They're quickly working through 1A as fast as possible. We were happy that we moved from C to 1B. So I'm hopeful that by next month this time, we're having a different conversation, and we are actually at the point of getting our teachers vaccinated. But that is something we are actively working. We have a great partnership with Fulton County to try and make it more accessible for our staff.
Can I just interject there really quickly, because I want to make sure, and Dr. Lovett, in your response, I want to make sure that it's clear to the public that Atlanta Public Schools does not have a say in how this vaccination is distributed,
That is right.
when it is received,
That's right.
in what order it is distributed at all.
That's right.
We are at the mercy of the Department of Health and the state.
That's correct.
And there are states across the country where teachers have already started being vaccinated in their districts, in their counties where they live. We are not at that point in Georgia. In fact, Georgia is one of the lowest
That's right.
vaccinated states in the country. The fact that teachers and staff are in the group 1B, and there are various groups that need to be vaccinated. We're currently in 1A in Georgia. We're hopeful that we move to 1B soon,
Right.
but there's no set timeline for that. The fact that teachers are in 1B is a function of state government. And I encourage everyone to encourage their legislators, their governor,
That's right.
Department of Public Health to move teachers as fast as they can so that they are vaccinated immediately. Because right now, we're still in 1A, and who knows for how long we're going to be in 1A. There was reports out today talking about how, for lack of a better phrase, how much of a mess it was to vaccinate people with people in 1A category, which is first responders,
Healthcare
health personnel, people over 65. But I also want to make it clear that there are plenty of people, and I've heard this from the administration, there are people who want to help us.
Yes.
It's just about getting us the supply and making sure that our teachers are eligible.
Right.
And Dr. Herring, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, but we can do this, we just can't because of restraints that are not in our control.
That's right.
So in the same manner that we've seen a lot of advocacy on us on behalf of students, we need to see that same advocacy on behalf of teachers
Right.
on our state government, because that's really where we are being held up, is the fact that in some places in the state, vaccines are just sitting in freezers.
And Chairman Estevez, if I may, just to stand very strongly with you in that statement. In Atlanta Public Schools, we are also, as you've said, very fortunate to have had partners in the health field who have been very clear that if there was any opportunity to have access to the vaccine, that they could help us expedite the opportunity to vaccinate our teacher workforce. And so to that end, I just would simply echo the urgency and the need for us to advocate greatly on behalf of our educational system and for our teachers around that level of accessibility. And I do appreciate the very explicit explanation that the opportunity to do that does not reside specifically with Atlanta Public Schools, but given that opportunity, it would be an immediate moment for us to help get our 1B cohort, if you will, but our staff vaccinated. So that does remain true, and for those who are in tune to this conversation, we do continue to push for advocacy, and this administration has been doing that, just that. We are grateful for having a very healthy relationship with the Fulton County Board of Health and the Georgia Department of Public Health. So I also want to be very clear in that. Yet I take on that responsibility to echo the need for us to do whatever we can to accelerate that. So thank you.
And can I just add something? As we were chatting, I believe we have some of that great advocacy happening right now. As we were chatting, we were getting a message here that there are some slots that have opened up for employees who are 65 and older. By end of today, for those persons who are 65 and older who are APS employees, they're going to do a special clinic even. Fulton County is working with us to try and get our employees vaccinated as soon as possible. So we'll make sure to even put out a special push for that. For those employees within the district, we can get that done even this Saturday. So they're working really closely with us. Like Dr. Herring mentioned, we have a great relationship with Fulton County. We have been blessed in that regard, and they are working actively with us. I don't know if they're listening in on the board meeting, but I'm getting that message as we're talking to say we're going to open up some special opportunities even for our persons who are 65 and older. So
Great,
we'll
I
keep it
appreciate
going.
that. And Mr. Chair, thank you for making that point, because I think a few of us are starting to get taps from community members about, as we are rolling out reopening the vaccination piece. And so I appreciate you making that point and making that very clear.
you.
And wherever we can offer that to our, staff and our, to our faculty and staff is always great opportunity. The only last question I had was in regards to, that goes to some of the data provided in the appendix, just kind of understanding, or if we can just, Dr. Hannah, just more details about the school level, the school-based plans. So to Cynthia's question about if when will parents find out their child's teacher, any other details about safety and security in regards to PPE, dividers, all of that information should rest with the actual school, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what other, can you just for clarity for the community, what other information is also provided at the school level? And the reason why I'm asking that is because, there are very detailed questions that we're receiving on the school level, which is different, where some of the schools, there's 60% intent to return. Some schools, it's as low as 27%. So there isn't a, cookie cutter plan. So just clarifying what that, the information that parents can go to their school and receive.
Let me tag team a bit, Board Vice Chair Collins, with a response to that. And so I appreciate the way you've crafted that question. So first and foremost, as shared, relative to the continuation of teacher assignment, we have identified the goal of January 15th for families to be able to identify that information. Our schools have been resourced well with both PPE, mask, and other equipment or resources that will be necessary for the mitigation of safety and health risks. And so if there are curiosities around what that looks like, it is best to have that conversation or reach out to the schools. Thirdly, I'd like to identify, you made an excellent point, there is a great deal of variation. Overall, from the intent to return declaration, we know that a third of our district has identified an intent to return. In that, within that identification, there is variation, 5 schools being at that 60% capacity threshold or higher. And within those schools, we asked early on for there to be the support of not just our administration, but parents to understand that we will work with principals to identify what their instructional model would look like. The school would provide that specific information. In addition, fourth, we talked about the capacity dashboard. So if there's a question around what does the classroom look like at my specific school or at a specific school, that is also a space where the school would be able to speak to what that classroom setup would look like. Now, again, with a third of our overall population of traditional parents who have identified the intent to return face-to-face, a good number of our schools are also under 30%. And so we are appreciative of the work, and this is an important pause for me to recognize our school principals for the work and their diligence and their intentionality and strategy around being prepared for that time. And so to that end, principals and their administration can speak to their schools set up and even what that number looks like per enrollment, because I think that that is another question as well, even if it's also tied specifically to teacher return, if it's specific. I think that those are some of the things that came to me immediately in terms of what community members or parents might anticipate in terms of asking, and we can redirect them to the school. And then finally, I do want to lift the redesign of that COVID-19 dashboard. We were intentional about redesigning that because they can find out by school what information would be tied to any positive cases, as well as quarantining, as well as the number of individuals that have been impacted. And so we've tried to be as robust as possible in trying to upgrade that level of information. And I just want to one more time echo the appreciation for what this responsibility has been on our school principals throughout this entire process, and we cannot echo that enough. Certainly, by no means do we minimize also the unique role that our teachers are playing at this same time. So I hope that answers some. I don't know if there's something you feel that I might have overlooked, Dr. Levette, and if I didn't answer something specifically, I don't mind elaborating, Board Vice Chair.
Oh, that was great, just because of the fact I definitely want to make the point there is just some detail, like baseline from the district is not cookie cutter, and that was great. Thank you.
We have Aretta, then Leslie. Unless Nancy, I don't think you have a question. You already said what you had to say. So Aretta, then Leslie.
Hello, greetings, thank you. I want to reiterate what Board Member Nancy Meister said in terms of us all really thinking about what is going to be the best decision, and not just for ourselves, but also thinking about the greater community as a whole and where we are and spread. And then I also want to ask, have you heard anything, have there been any talks from a national, state, or city level in terms of we are now moving into a different government, or not government, but governing folks? And are there any talks about an overall shutdown or quarantine or pause? Have any of those discussions been had with you all or above your level?
I appreciate, I'll start on that response. Thank you, Board Member Baldwin, for that question. For the most part, weekly, I interface with the superintendents, with the Council of Great City Schools, where we also have the ability to, and have been proactive around reaching out to not just the federal government and the U.S. Department of Education, but very specifically also working to advocate, propose, and submit requests as administration is changing, because I think that's really what your question is grounded in. As administration changes, have we heard anything specific around a national mandate? We have not as of yet. I will share that in our national conversations, we've had some exploration in that space, but we have not been in receipt of any specific guidance and or heads up that something of that nature would be coming. That's not to say that it's not as the numbers rise. But we are in tune to, we are committed to being in tune to those conversations and participating in them. At least I am on a regular basis. And I know that members of our administration and board members are a part of some of those conversations as well.
Thank you.
Leslie?
Yep, thank you. And I just want to give everyone a word of thanks for everything that you've been doing for many long months, and hopefully the end is in sight a little bit here. We'll reiterate and support Nancy's comments around and Loretta's around making sure that people are, please be mindful about the rationale for sending kids back, and that we can do it as safely as possible. The fewer people who are in the building, I think. I do want to ask to Dr. Herring, I know that there was a slide in here that had our own in-school clinics and then the core sites and others. Is there any way to make it much easier, maybe on the homepage, some big fat buttons about want to get tested or vaccinated, click here, like a one click to get to that information? It is, it's not something that sometimes people have a desire to do it, and the easier we can make it to get there, that would be much better. And also, Jason, I appreciate you bringing up the the conversation around vaccines and the availability of them. But I also want to make sure that we're aware of and addressing the culture of vaccination. We don't know that all of our parents, teachers, children, staff are going to be vaccinated, even if it is available. It's not necessarily something that everybody is going to do, and I know that we cannot track that or make it mandatory, but I do want to make sure that we're promoting within every school and every place we can a culture of vaccination. This is extremely important, and there's some horrible rumors going around about just some crazy reasons why somebody wouldn't do that. So just making sure that that we're very very in front of the conversation around why this is important, and myth busting along the way as we can. So.
Yeah. If I may, Chair Estevez, in response to both items that you've identified, Board Member Grant, number one, yes, regarding the COVID testing, comprehensive COVID testing plan, and keeping it as simple in terms of publicizing it and accessibility as perhaps a one click. Maybe that's even just based on demographics by design. And I do want to applaud Dr. Lovett and the Student Services and Healthcare team and our partners who were very intentional around making certain that Atlanta Public Schools didn't have just one or two locations. Just by virtue of the way this has been identified, it's really been designed to do broad scale coverage of our school system. And so to your point, even if it's a map or something that they can just click based on an area, we will work to get something to that nature established and made visible. We still have, I think, a few more locations to confirm, but we are very certain that the opportunity to have that would be able to exist. And then secondly, I want to appreciate you acknowledging the culture of vaccination for so many reasons. Just within the history of our country, there are many reasons why we know individuals do have angst and uncertainty around getting vaccinated. We have been in conversations with healthcare professionals to help empower us and provide resources that will allow for us to educate and then give choice for employees and the community.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah, and just to, I'll finish that out for you, Dr. Herring, while you grab a drink there. And so, yeah, just to reiterate what she said, we are in conversations with our partners that she mentioned, and we've talked about how we're going to go about the communications piece really around health education so that people understand both the benefits of vaccinations, they have a better understanding around the COVID testing, so they can then make those informed decisions. So that's a very important piece of our communication strategy, really around both the COVID-19 testing as well as the vaccinations.
Thank you, Dr. Lovett.
Okay.
That was it for me, Chair Estevez.
Great, thank you so much. And I think that's it for the questions. From my standpoint, I am empathetic to everyone as we move to reopen school buildings. I want to remind people that schools have been open since the fall, and that our kids have been educated since the fall. And I absolutely agree with folks who have said we need to be considerate in how we're sending our kids back and if we're sending our kids back. But I also want to make sure that it's not seen as a rush to open schools, because by many metrics, we have taken a very conservative approach to reopening schools. And I also want to emphasize that this is not about, I know Nancy mentioned that many of her constituents advocated for school reopening, which they did, but I think our focus should not necessarily be on that. Mm-hmm. It should be on the fact that we know, and every principal and teacher who has been in classrooms and has done the interventions that we've been doing for the last couple of months know that there are students who have to be in our school buildings to learn. They need that support in our school buildings. And we see that in the data, whether it's academic data, whether it's attendance data, whether it's the return to buildings survey. There's a percentage of students that needs to come back. And what makes me somewhat less apprehensive about the fact that the virus is still high in community spread is the fact that when you look at how many of our students are returning, and I'm sure it's going to be less than this, but only a third of our students are returning back in person across our schools. That number is going to be less. And I feel heartened by the fact that the kids that are showing up in school, particularly when you look at our South Side and West Side schools, they're not showing up for the convenience of any one person, other than the fact that those kids need to be there. That they need that support in person, they need that intervention. And I'm also confident in the fact that as a school system, we will be able to have those mitigation strategies in place to reduce the spread in our schools. All that being said, we all need to continue to do our part to flatten the curve and defeat this virus. We have failed as a community, as a state, as a country, as it relates to fighting this pandemic. We get a big F in doing so. The virus is out of control, and the American people in the state, people in Atlanta, have essentially they're just starting to move on when we're not even done yet. And I hope that, and I say that to emphasize the fact that people need to continue to wear their masks. They need to continue to act like there's a pandemic, because we are in a pandemic. We're not done with this yet. So there will be parents who will not want to send their kids to school in person, even though they selected in person. And I want to make sure that with the administration, that it is fine for them to say, you know what, I selected in person on December 21st, but I actually think I want my kids to be virtual. I want to make sure that that is okay, one. Two, I want to tell those parents at the same time that when they go back to virtual, that means they're virtual for the 9 weeks. It doesn't mean that they can go back and forth. I know other school districts have done that. I know Cobb County, Fulton County, Gwinnett County have told parents the same thing. They could always switch back to virtual, but they can't go back and forth between virtual and in person. So can I get that confirmation?
Please, Chairman Estevez, let me speak to that. Certainly, if upon moving forward, there is a decision to move from being face-to-face to virtual, we will absolutely support that. And for clarity, once moving to virtual, it would be the expectation that APS would not allow that change to come back until the next window, as you've already mentioned, which would be the second 9 weeks of the second semester. But we recognize that there could very well be that decision made by a parent, and we would work to support that. Also, I think it's important to note that by January 12th, we've asked that all schools have their own unique reopening plan made available on their website. And so that would also allow for additional information that's somewhat relative to Board Vice Chair Collins' question. So if you want to know more about your specific school, but that too might very well help empower or inform that type of decision. And if I may, Chairman Estevez, I just want to say as superintendent, during what has been an extraordinarily complex time for all of us in K-12 education, the weight of every decision that we must yield daily is not taken lightly. I have been especially grateful for the guidance that we have received from our health care experts, practitioners. I've said that multiple times when we've had presentations, be they virtual or face-to-face. And even their guidance has changed over the last 7 to 8 to 9 months. And I appreciate something that was also echoed by, I believe it started with Board Member Meister and echoed by Board Member Baldwin and Board Member Grant and others. It is an important and necessary opportunity for all of us to make very wise decisions around how we press forward. As superintendent, it is important for me to communicate not only the weight of the decisions that we execute, but the thoughtfulness and the carefulness that is rooted in safety and health for our teachers, for every adult in the buildings, as well as for our children. And I also want to communicate that as we move day to day, so, we sit today at January 11th. As we move day to day, we also take on the responsibility to constantly monitor what is in front of all of us. We know that that is necessary, so it is important that that too is heard. And I also want to appreciate, Chairman Estevez, your reminder to all that school has been open. School has been open. We have been challenged in this opening, but we have worked every day since August 24th to do the best that we can, and that's when that collective we starts with our teachers and our leaders at our schools to ensure that our children are educated. I won't be intentionally too redundant, but the truth of the matter is that there is something even more powerful that we lose when we're not able to serve some of our most vulnerable families and students, and it is also our responsibility to make these decisions as much as they can, and they will be, in a space where they are guided by safety and health, risks, and the ability to mitigate well. So not a day goes by. Not a day goes by, and we will continue to monitor. And wherever there is a space for advocacy for those who can do just that, particularly around not just testing, but obviously vaccination, we join with that level of advocacy to help expedite that process.
Thank you. And look, as a community, we're way behind the timeline. We were supposed to have 20 million vaccinations done by the end of the year. We're at 8 or 9 million right now. They're saying at this pace, we won't reach herd immunity for another several years. And for folks who, and I hear you, I completely understand, but to completely stay 100% virtual until vaccinations are in place would likely mean, based on the current circumstances, that we just not open for the rest of the school year, and hope that there's enough vaccination for us to reopen in August. And based on what we've seen in the data across the country, that will do a significant amount of harm to our students. And I strongly believe that we can mitigate those risks by mitigation strategies related to COVID-19 that have been proven to work. So it is a extremely challenging decision. I want to thank Dr. Herring and the administration for navigating this as best as you can. There is no playbook for this anywhere. Every school district, every city, every state has a unique set of circumstances that they're having to fight through. And I really do want to appreciate y'all, and I want to appreciate the people who are doing the work on the front lines, our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our principals, our staff at the school sites. I really do hope that with a strong push from everyone involved, that we can get people vaccinated ASAP. And I'm hopeful that that happens sooner rather than later, but we will see. Thank you, Dr. Levitt. Dr. Herring, I think we're on to the next one.
Yes, sir, Chairman Estevez. For our second presentation, Dr. Angela King-Smith, our Chief Strategy Officer, as part of her updates On our charter system operating model and cluster planning, we'll speak specifically about the district's charter system renewal application with the state. This follows up on her presentation last December. So for this update, Dr. King will provide overviews of the cluster planning process, the charter system governance structure, and the connections between the APS 2020-2025 strategic plan and the charter system work. Dr. King-Smith, you may begin your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Herring, and to the members of the Board of Education. Today, I will give you a brief update regarding the charter system operating model, specifically talking to you all about some of the work that we've been doing with the clusters and the cluster advisory team and the district executive team in preparation for our application. Highlighted here today, this afternoon, I will give you some updates regarding that charter system renewal application, as well as some of the other activities. Highlighted here, this is a slide that you're very familiar with. It explains what a charter system is, and this is unique to the state of Georgia. It is a focus around providing a commitment to innovation and really focusing around our district culture, innovating, using flexibility, as well as providing support to our local schools. And then also a component of it is also a local school governance team and also providing schools autonomy and flexibility. On this slide, it also highlights the need for broad flexibility is the freedom granted to charter systems that allows them to waive most of the OCGA Title 20 rules and State Board of Education rules and guidelines. Highlighted on this slide, I think I skipped one by accident. Highlighted on this slide, it just kind of highlights that school level governance means decision-making authority in personnel decisions, financial decisions, curriculum and instruction, resource allocation, establishing and monitoring the achievement of school improvement goals through a school plan, and school operations. Our charter system renewal process includes several steps, and these are the steps that I've highlighted before. I just wanted to highlight that we did file our renewal letter with the state in December, as outlined. And then we are in the state on step 2, which is around completing the charter system renewal application. We are in the process of collecting data and information in order to complete that process, and it will include information regarding our essential features, our academic accountability, our local school governance implementation, and any changes that we're planning to do, as well as our charter supplement uses. Highlighted on this slide, you'll see several of the activities. A number of them I just went over, but it also highlights the things that are our next steps regarding the process. And it includes having several meetings within the clusters and our cluster advisory meetings, as well as internal meetings, in order to be able to draft the charter system renewal application. Our goal is to try and submit our application in April. And so we'll be engaging in several activities across the district. And here's a status of some of those activities that have taken place so far. Atlanta Public Schools has submitted the intent letter of renewal, and that took place in December. We received a confirmation email from the Godot and as well as our assigned consultant. And so we begin working with our assigned consultant on that application process. We also gathered input and feedback from stakeholders, and we've started to use that information to help us in our guiding questions regarding our charter system application. Highlighted on this slide, you'll see a number of other meetings that have also taken place, and I'm about to actually share some of the input and feedback that we've gathered from a number of our stakeholders across the system. We've held APS cluster advisory meetings. We've also engaged our district executive committee, and we've also gathered feedback from principals and other central administration leaders. And don't forget, we also have had the opportunity to engage with the board to gather feedback as well. Highlighted on this slide, you'll see the district executive committee structure. Remember, our GO teams nominate someone to serve on the cluster advisory teams. And then they also turn around and within those cluster advisory teams for each of our respective clusters, they nominate somebody for the district executive committee. Outlined on the left-hand side of the slide, you'll see the dates. All of those dates have been predetermined, and those will be the meetings over the course of this school year. These are a minimum number of meetings that will be held, and these are the dates that they have selected. The meeting details for those stakeholders in our community who would like to sit in and listen in on those sessions, all that information is posted on our website. And so during our last district executive committee held on December the 15th, we engaged in a number of really just engaging conversations with folks that represent each respective cluster. And one of the questions that we asked them was, how are things going in your cluster? How has your cluster collaborated during this time? And they highlighted some of these really positive things that are happening within the cluster. Within the Thero cluster and Carver cluster, they talked about working together on core content. Within the within South Atlanta and the Washington clusters, they talked about vertical alignment. Within our Douglas and North Atlanta clusters, they talked about wraparound support and student support. Within our Best and Thero clusters, they talked about the work that they've been doing around cross-cluster collaboration. Multiple clusters mentioned how role-alike folks are coming together to share, to plan, to strategize, and to think about how they could do the work, the instructional work. Within our Mays cluster, our Jackson cluster, Grady clusters, they talked about their community engagement and partnership efforts, as well as their programming efforts and special support efforts for family and communities. One of the things that we also talked about was the development of the cluster plan. If you think back 5-6 years ago, we all developed and engaged detailed cluster plans for each of our respective clusters that laid out their signature program, where principals and community members came together to define and outline a cluster plan around the major programs and initiatives that they were going to execute, as well as, and that was all done in alignment with the district plan. So we are in the process right now of outlining what those plans will look like and how it will support each of the respective clusters. Outlined on this slide is the cover and the table of contents for the Mays cluster plan. These plans would be updated to support and in alignment of the district's strategic plan. The other thing that we talked about is how can we improve the cluster planning process? How can we be more effective in implementing the cluster plans? And here are just some of the ideas and recommendations that they shared with us in terms of some ideas to improve those existing cluster plans in this next iteration. And so here, I'm not going to go over all of them for the sake of time, but some of the ideas were to share a clear pathway that outlines the student experience in each cluster, to focus on transitional grades, to outline sequential priorities and to track progress, and to better connect parents and staff within each of the clusters so that they can support the work. The other part of our important conversation, and all of this goes into our charter system application, is we've got to outline some specifics regarding our local school governing teams, also known as GO teams. And the GODO provides building blocks as well as definitions around what a high quality GO team looks like, or a high quality local school governing team. And outlined are the criteria and the major areas that we need to assess and determine how we're doing. And so we asked our cluster advisory team and our district executive committee to rate where we are regarding each of the major buckets. And so highlighted on the slide right now, you can see on a scale of 1 to 3, where did they believe that they felt that our GO teams currently fall regarding quality as it relates to that GODO criteria. And so you can see from the highest to the lowest where they felt like there needed to be additional support and where they felt like things were. From the highest, Go Team focuses on governance and stays out of management, being the highest. The lowest, in the area that they felt like they needed support, are those things I believe fall from 2 and below. Substantial autonomy from local district and designated areas, they felt like that met expectations. So anything below 2, which says meets expectations. So below meets expectations was the following. Go Team composition reflects the diversity of the community. They gave that a score of 1.875. And then they also gave the same score for participates in regular governing council training each year. So those are opportunities for us to strengthen and make sure that we have supports in place to address those needs. And then finally, they also made the recommendation around participating in regular governance council. We know that there's some more opportunities there. And we also, I wanted to highlight this because there's also been a number of questions regarding the composition. We believe that we're going to change the composition of the Go Team so that there are at least 3 parent seats for the Go Team. And then finally, I already went over this, so I'm just going to go over this slide. On the left-hand side, you'll see the cluster advisory dates. These are different dates than the district executive team because it's a different committee. Finally, we used the current strategic plan and we asked the members of the cluster advisory teams to highlight those priorities in the current brand new strategic plan. And so highlighted on the next slide, you'll see here a breakdown of the top 2 choices for each cluster. We have 2 clusters that are meeting. One is meeting this week, and I think the other one's meeting next week, Jackson and Mays cluster, so they haven't engaged in this activity, but they will engage in this activity during their upcoming meeting. They had those meetings scheduled prior in the fall, and so their meetings actually fall in the month of January. And then finally, our charter system engagement, you can see the types of activities that we're doing to engage various stakeholders regarding this conversation. And we will continue to do that as time over the development of the application. And then finally, we are working with our Godot consultant on the renewal process, and we've begun drafting the application based on the input that we've received from the Go Team's Cluster Advisory Team, District Executive Committee, Administration, and Board of Education. We will continue hosting conversations to gather input for the final application. At this time, this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Dr. King-Smith. Questions from board members? Leslie?
I'm just trying to get a clarity on, I love it that you put the priorities in for ranking with them. Just curious though, when I was reading through it about, on so slide 21, where they're prioritizing their, it was interesting. Some of the clusters shows attracting high quality teachers, leaders, and staff, and others listed retaining. I just wondering why that bucket wasn't all of the above, attracting and retaining, where in the attract, grow, support, and retain is the way it's verbalized or spelled out in the above slide.
So it was
just curious about how the exercise was presented to people.
Sure, we actually presented to them the actual priorities in the strategic plan, and they went through and they ranked where they thought they were. And then we showed them the results, and we asked them for clarity on, because the bullet actually in the strategic plan actually addresses all 3.
Yeah.
We asked them, where's the challenge? And so for some clusters, they feel like there's a lot of, they have a lot of support and they can get people in the door and they're attracting the right folks, but it's over time that they're struggling to retain the staff. Yeah. So some of these, there are notes behind this, but we did engage in conversation to better understand some of their challenges and some of the things that they'd like to see in the future, and that's why you might see the distinction.
Yeah, that's interesting. Appreciate all the work and just, again, fidelity of implementation, right?
Yes.
That was very ominous of you, Leslie. It kind of like she faded out as she was saying that. It was a little,
Sorry, not always
a little
intending.
scary as you
Well, again, fidelity of implementation.
There
Let
you
me,
go. No,
the
that-
end of the phrase up there, it's where it all happens.
we got it. We got it. Thank you for that.
Thank
And I do find it interesting. I mean, the strengthening pre-K literacy and mathematics, literacy and numeracy is a top priority for half of our clusters. And yeah, I mean, it should be. It should be. So, and I also found the social emotional learning piece and the retaining high quality teachers. I mean, obviously these are, like you said, these were our goals, but just to see them, the fact that our clusters are ranking high, some of the ones that we think are obvious, it makes sense based on the breakdown. One thing that I had was, I appreciate y'all making the recommendation, or the recommendation getting to us. Or is this, the recommendation slide 18, those are their recommendations to you, or is that your recommendations to us moving forward?
So what I'm going to be coming to you with is a more comprehensive list of recommendations that will actually fall in the application. This is some of the feedback that they are giving to us.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of weight here, and I anticipate you'll see this again when we come to you with a more comprehensive list of recommendations. These are some of the, I'll call it an emerging recommendation that we've heard loud and clear from clusters, that they think that this is some areas that we need to make sure that we're providing support.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that the highest rated one that they feel like they're exceeding expectations is the fact that they're focusing on governance and staying out of management. That's obviously something as a board we are focused on improving on and making sure all school boards should be doing that. So that's good. But obviously the composition reflecting the diversity of the community is also incredibly important. And I think that including parents, more parents in the Go Team structure will certainly help with that. Now, I want to make sure we leverage how excited people are to participate in the in civic engagement. People are really excited now.
Yes,
I think
they
it's
are.
good timing for this year to say, hey, you're excited about participating civically. Here's a key way to make sure that your community school is doing what it should be doing, and that's by engaging in your Go Team. And I think that we've had pretty good parent representation in terms of parents running for Go Team seats in all of our clusters, but I think I can see us having even more now because people are just so engaged in what's happening in our schools. With being at home, they're more engaged in just politics generally. And although this may not seem as it's not necessarily a political position, but you're helping to craft policy at the very micro level. And oftentimes for those who have been on HOA boards, for example, there's a lot of important work that happens at the Go Team level. And it's going to be important for those Go Teams to reflect the diversity of the school community. So I look forward to receiving recommendations related to that, because that's definitely one I know all board members have received over time. Oh, the Go Team is too much community, not enough parents. Oh, the Go Team is too much staff,
Yes.
not enough community or parents.
Yes.
So we've definitely gotten that feedback, and I'm glad that's being reinforced here.
Great, thank you.
Leslie, did you have anything else?
Any quick follow-up? Could you, I just have always wanted to make sure that when parent is called out, that it would be parent, guardian, or something that includes non-parents who are custodial.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you so much.
As you transition, was that thank you to board member Grant or to Dr. Smith, Sheriff?
That was to Dr. Kingsmith. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Kingsmith, thank you. And I just want to take a moment before you leave the podium to thank you and the team for keeping us on point and on pace with the charter renewal application. A lot has happened over the this past semester, and knowing that we have been on point and in pace with that and this work is just simply reassuring. So just an appreciation to you and the team.
Thank you.
For our third presentation, we have leaders from our Accountability and Information Technology Division available to discuss progress made over the past year on key accountability, instructional technology, and information technology initiatives and their efforts to create and sustain a 21st century school system. As we are all aware, our schools have been operating virtually since March of last year. This would not have been possible without the great work of the Accountability and Information Technology team, or division, led by Bill Karish and his team leaders in accountability, instructional technology, and information technology. Femi Aina, Executive Director of Information Technology and Strategy and Planning, will discuss IT infrastructure, network system, and related support. Michael Lamont, Executive Director of Data and Information Group, will update us on student information, testing, and research. Dr. Aaliyah Henderson-Rosser, Executive Director of Instructional Technology, will discuss such topics as Digital Bridge and Atlanta Virtual Academy. We look forward to their report. We will start first with Mr. Aina, Executive Director of Information Technology and Strategy and Planning.
Good afternoon, Board Chair Estevez, Vice Chair Collins, board members, Superintendent Herring, and the community. The purpose of our presentation today is to provide you with a progress update on the status of several initiatives this school year, in particular in the areas of accountability, instructional technology, and information technology. Since the start of the current year, we've distributed a total of 24,685 devices. This was as of late December. Both Chromebooks and iPads to our students, as well as a little over 7,300 AT&T hotspots with unlimited data. I have to note that those are the devices that were just distributed for this school year alone and excludes anything we did prior. These distributions were targeted primarily towards students and families that responded to our survey and indicated that they either need a device at home to support virtual learning, or to those who indicated that they had inadequate to no internet connection at home. Our main goal for connectivity was to ensure that a hotspot was provided to siblings within the same household, and that hotspots can support multiple family members connected to the network concurrently. Over the course of the current school year, we've established processes with our schools to continue to support new requests, as well as to provide the needed technology support to our families. Okay, we need to go next. Can you advance the slide? Thank you. Since the start of the school year, we've been reporting on student login rates. This data is gathered by measuring student logins to several different platforms, including Active Directory, Google Classroom, My Backpack, and Zoom as examples. For students in the lower grade levels, we also get data from platforms such as Seesaw in order to validate their participation. A view of the data by grade level shows that we're averaging 99.4% login rate across the district. And month over month, our average login rate exceeds 85%. The data also shows that our kindergarten through 12th grade logins all exceeded 98% in the first 5 months of virtual learning. While the pre-K grade level participation was just under 94%, this was not unexpected, since many of our pre-K students do not use the APS provided login IDs, but rather some of them may use mom or dad's account to log into some of the systems, such as Zoom. In these instances, their participation is not easily captured in our reporting. A detailed view of the login data is available through the APS dashboard. Next slide. In the area of network infrastructure and applications, we're making several significant improvements designed to support the anticipated increase in the use of technology when students return back to in-person instruction. These include increasing our network bandwidth from 20 gigs to 30 gigs in order to support the large number of anticipated devices, increasing the wide area network circuits for several schools, in particular schools with larger number of enrolled students. And finally, we implemented a new content filter solution that allows us to monitor student devices and activities while learning from home. This new platform also empowers parents and teachers to actively monitor and control their students' internet content, such as YouTube and other similar sites. The Zoom platform was implemented at the start of the school year to support direct synchronous instruction between the students and their teachers. Next slide, please. In the area of student support, we've made several changes in order to adapt to the virtual learning to ensure that we're able to support our remote learners and anticipate future support needs. These include increasing the number of direct field support technicians to schools, establishing 10 technology support hubs throughout the district for families needing direct hands-on support. We increased the coverage hours for our IT service desk to cover 7 a.m. through 6 p.m. We increased the number of service desk agents and added bilingual support to our desk for Spanish-speaking families. We're also providing online support through the Let's Talk platform directly to our students and families so we can hear directly from them. And since the virtual learning began in March, we have resolved 51,404 service tickets. This is a significant increase from the same period last year. Next slide. As you will recall, the board approved last August that the superintendent enter into a contract to provide one-to-one support devices to every Atlanta Public School student. To date, 4,600 iPad devices designated for our pre-K and K students have been delivered to our warehouse. These devices are now being prepared in readiness for distribution. 35,400 Chromebooks ordered for our grade levels 1 through 12 have been on back order for a significant period of time. This is because, if you're following the news, there's a global manufacturing shortage on Chromebook devices for education in general. As more and more schools move towards virtual learning. We have escalated our urgent need to senior leadership at Hewlett-Packard, and I'm happy to report that we're now seeing some movement. As of December 31st, the first batch of 9,000 Chromebooks shipped out of China and are headed over to the United States. I must caution that it may still be a few weeks before we turn this around, prepare them, and get them into the hands of our students. So with that, I'll now pass it on to Michael Lamont to provide a quick update on our accountability activities.
Good evening, board members. During this unprecedented global pandemic caused by COVID-19, I've been incredibly grateful to my team and how they've pivoted in our activities, just like many of our staff and our parents have as well. So next slide, please. I'm going to begin with research and evaluation. The research and evaluation team, led by Elise Linthy, continues to make actionable data available to our schools through a variety of means, including our Tableau dashboards. Most recently, in direct response to the pandemic, we have custom-built the intent to return form and the corresponding dashboards that allow schools to monitor in real time those students that have selected either face-to-face instruction, site-based virtual instruction, or AVA instruction. These tools allow schools to look not only at their overall school counts, but also counts by teacher and the number of students that have opted into each instructional model. This is in addition to my team continuing their other work with our data and reporting. Our team is also working in collaboration with health services to ensure we are collecting and publicly reporting all self-reported COVID-19 cases as we return to in-person instruction. Next slide. The Student Information and Applications team, led by Barbara Sylvester, has played a key role in transitioning our district to virtual learning back in March, and will be vital to ensure a smooth transition to face-to-face learning for some of our students, while maintaining the virtual learning environment for our students who choose to continue with site-based virtual. This team spun up dozens of data integrations, many overnight and over the weekend, to ensure our teachers would have access to the digital applications necessary to conduct virtual instruction. As schools were constantly learning and adding new digital resources, our team continued to ensure those resources were given the appropriate student information so they could be used by students and teachers. In addition, our team worked with Infinite Campus to ensure the changes in the schedules were properly reflected in state reporting to avoid any state funding implications in FTE, which is also managed by this team. Next slide. Finally, the testing and assessment team, led by Michael Ilmsayer, continues their tireless work to ensure testing and assessment continues in our district. They've changed much of how they've operated over the past year. We've conducted virtual test administration training for our staff, including STAR and local benchmarks through our Phoenix platform. As a reminder, federal Department of Education, not the Georgia Department of Education, governs most of our summative assessments, including milestones. As of today, all testing, including milestones, will be given this school year. We continue to monitor for any updates or changes from the Secretary of Education nominee, Dr. Miguel Cardona. But again, to reiterate, as of today, all state tests will take place this year at the direction of the federal Department of Education. This is the team that is working to collaborate with our schools and Godot to ensure both a safe and secure administration of all of these tests. We will continue to monitor for any updates and provide those to the board as appropriate. Thank you very much, and now I'll turn it over to Dr. Aaliyah Henderson-Rosser.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Departments across the district recognized that learning would be vastly different this fall. And the Department of Instructional Technology set out to partner with our colleagues across the district to ensure that we had a cohesive strategy around virtual teaching and learning for our students. We worked from an integrated approach to successful online learning. In the next few slides, I will discuss how the following puzzle pieces were implemented to give our students and teachers a focused approach to this new educational landscape. I will also discuss all of the models of support that were implemented to help them be successful. Next. Okay. School leaders and teachers overwhelmingly chose Zoom as the primary engagement tool. This allowed for more active student participation, and this tool offered a very robust approach to teaching and learning to allow students some semblance of face-to-face instruction. Next slide. The introduction of these digital tools and resources for students and teachers has been a huge undertaking. As you can imagine, a little overwhelming for school leaders, teachers, students, and even parents. The support for virtual instruction is represented here. In an effort for day one readiness, a checklist was created for schools to conduct a test run on various applications. Our project management team established a virtual war room. In this war room, we supported schools and students with any login issues. IT experts across the Division of Accountability and Information were represented in the war room, and they tracked any issues. Teams worked to resolve these issues before the first day of school. We wanted a smooth start, and outside of Zoom crashing on the first day, we typically did. Our IT applications team worked with each individual school to complete over 700 software integrations. These were all within my backpack platform. Training sessions were provided starting in the summer. Of course, there are a number of persons who support our students in the classroom, and training for each of these groups were conducted to ensure everyone who was involved in the process of delivering instruction received the appropriate training. Ongoing support for teachers was going to be critical. This is critical because we needed to build capacity to engage and excite our digital learners. Our ETSs have an open door for all teachers and staff for on-demand, in-the-moment support. Teachers can pop in to ask questions and get ongoing training as needed. Next slide. Our teachers have been amazing and have truly embraced the launch of virtual learning. As you can see, 87% of teachers are actively using Nearpod. This application was designed to boost student participation with collaborative activities and game-based instruction. APS teachers have provided over 3.6 million engaging and interactive student learning experiences using Nearpod. We increased after-hour support for students, next slide, using our Tutor ATL platform. This platform is now available from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Tutor ATL is available for students 7 days a week and is easily accessible through my backpack. Students have accessed Tutor ATL over 10,000 times since August 2020. Virtual Academy, Ava. This is designed to provide students an alternative, flexible approach to increase opportunities for academic success. In the spirit of flexible learning opportunities, we added additional high school courses that eligible middle school students can take. We expanded CTAE course offerings, and 9th through 12th grade students can now take 3 pathways 100% virtually in the areas of patient care, pharmacy, and entrepreneurship. Next slide. Our most recent program expansion began fall 2020 with the creation of Ava Junior. This program is for our pre-K through 5th grade students. Next slide. The Department of Library and Media Services' signature initiative, Race to Read, is in its 3rd year. Race to Read began as an initiative to get all APS students to read 20 minutes a day. This reading is for pleasure. We encourage students to read 20 minutes a day because they are then exposed to over 1.8 million words a year. We've partnered with the Urban League of Greater Atlanta and the Atlanta Speech School to help spread the message about Race to Read and hopefully encourage Atlanta families to make daily pleasure reading a household word and reading a household action. The collective reading goal has been increased to 10 million minutes by the end of this school year. More companies have partnered with us to help spread the word. Cox Media runs a Race to Read PSA spot daily on WSB, possibly you've seen it. Cox Media and Clear Channel Media have also agreed to post several Race to Read ads throughout the Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport. We are partnering with the mayor's office to infuse Race to Read into the mayor's summer reading plan for 2021. Race to Read's core message stands to be delivered in every corner of the city by all Atlantans. Help APS build a city that reads. And finally, in an effort to continue to close the gap around the access to high-speed internet and quality devices, last summer, we applied for the Verizon Innovative Learning Program for middle schools. This partnership would yield a $1.8 million investment in each one of our schools. It will provide an access plan, data plan for each student, a laptop for each student and for each teacher. I am happy to report that I was given the green light just this week to announce that we have been awarded this partnership. They have also included 5 of our high schools in their high school pilot. So hooray.
That's right. Goodness.
This concludes my part of the presentation, and I will turn it over to our chief, Bill Carich.
I'm just here to answer your questions, but I will just take a second to tell you that I've been in public schools many, many years, and I've never been more proud of any team I've ever worked with. And of course, I work with these 3 people all the time, and so I'll just say they have great teams, but they are great leaders, and they've done a great job for our students and our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our administrators, everyone in the district. They work tirelessly. They never say no. You can call them day and night, and they'll find a way to get it done. And I'll take your questions.
Hear, hear. Well, Bill, thank you so much for your leadership of this team. Femi, Michael, Aaliyah are amazing in their own right. I have great things to say about each one of them. Whether it's IT and the fact that we're one-to-one, we're going to be, or are one-to-one, but will continue to be one-to-one into the future is an amazing accomplishment. And to bring all the technology that we needed to switch to virtual is a huge feat. And with Michael and his team and all of the transparency and data that we have as a community, I can tell you is extremely helpful for board members, but also as a parent, as a community member. It's unlike any other to have that much transparency and that much data accessible to the average person. I think that it's amazing. And Aaliyah, you and your team are awesome. Social media, and you just see that y'all are just doing it. And it is visible on this deck. There are so many great things happening on your team, and I truly appreciate what y'all are doing. I can tell you that as the dad of a kindergartner, my son can operate Zoom better than I can, and it's crazy because he can go through all these apps in my backpack. Like, he can read well, and he doesn't. Like, he can't read well yet. That maybe says a lot about me as a parent, but he's going to get there. He's going to get there. He started kindergarten in COVID-19, but he does navigate my backpack like he can read. Like, he's like, oh yeah, I need to go, and then he clicks, and I'm like, how did you know that? The other thing I was going to mention he does is he actually chats with his friends.
Yeah.
Again, he can't read, but he chats through through Zoom using emojis.
Yeah.
It's amazing that they've learned how to do this.
Yeah,
and I'm like, Jaden, how do you know who you're chatting? And he's like, well, the name's right there. And he's just matching, what the name looks like to who. So anyways, thank y'all for all that y'all have done. I want to see if my colleagues have any questions. Aretta, and then Leslie. And then Isha.
Hello, and thank you again for all of your hard work. that you guys have done and continue to do. My question is around metrics of engagement. So the metrics that have been shared really just tell us who has access, right? So the number that I'm looking is the percent who's logged on at least once in a month. And what I want to know is what other metrics are you using to gauge engagement? Are you looking at average number of days per week, average numbers of minutes per day? What other metrics are you using to really look into our students' engagement other than whether or not they have a device and can log on, but are they doing it, and are they doing it at what rate are they doing it?
Thank you for the question. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways from a technology perspective. I mean, we can count activities that are completed in Google Classroom, but what we, just like in face-to-face instruction, primarily what we rely on are, as you know, there's guidance about how many hours a day students are supposed to be engaged. For example, if it's face-to-face, it's 5 hours. I'm not going to read this to you. Pre-K through K, you know, the asynchronous days are 1 hour. So there's a standard for every grade level that they're supposed to be engaged. And that's largely monitored, as it is during face-to-face instruction, largely monitored by teachers. And so as they're doing their grade book, as they're doing assignments, teachers are what we rely on to make sure students are engaged every day. And as with face-to-face instruction, if there are challenges, of course, then the teacher and the administrator in that building follows up with parents to see why that is. Where we come in is making sure the technology is not the obstacle. And, you know, Femi and others have gone to houses. We've had people, as you know, we have the group next door every day who work with people who come in who have technology challenges. So that's kind of what our part of the job is.
Thank you for clarifying that. That makes sense then why the metric is that for your department, right? Because you're looking to make sure, like you said, are people capable? Are they able? Do they have what they need? So thank you for clarifying that. And just for the administration, I would be curious to those additional metrics that I did mention. Thank you.
We captured those questions, Board Member Baldwin. Just wanted to be responsive to you. Yes, ma'am.
Leslie? Then Ishay.
Yep. We'll piggyback a tiny bit on what Retta Baldwin was just talking about. And I think we all need to start readjusting our vision around this and what we're hearing back when we move into the more student outcomes focused governance piece. And what I would love, to understand, I greatly appreciate the presentation. Really, there was so much there from all five of you. And I want to acknowledge all of the work that's been done. But I do want to make sure that we are, as this board has taken on a verbal commitment to equity, that's reflected all of the time in all the ways that we can, and understanding the need for devices and technology and connectivity, and how I don't personally, or I don't think as a board need to understand any specifics around that, but just, what is the process for tracking the ones that aren't connected, the ones that aren't, hooked up, the one, if we're waiting on all these devices, who are they supposed to go to? How is the gap, what does that process look like? And then Michael Lamont, in the data presentation, I know there were lots of little slides overlaid, which are pages on the data site, and I know that those are reviewed. Pieces of those are reviewed with the school level administration on a very regular basis. That's how they get their information. But we were doing data digs, and those were rolled out. I think only one cluster was requesting them, and then they started to roll out in other clusters. And I know that everybody's been overwhelmed and, focused on what we're focused on in terms of this complete paradigm shift. But in terms of expressing to parents or go teams what those, what does the data at the school actually look like? And how are we as a, administration and a board tracking our outcomes at the school level and the student level? So, and I'm just not looking for responses necessarily, just breathing on some stuff here. And Michael, I appreciated you bringing up the fact that the testing was not a state level mandate, it is a federal mandate. And I just wanted to let folks know that the recommendations the Council of Great City Schools made to the new administration, the transition team for the new administration, did request reestablishing state testing once on-site assessments can be safely administered. So if it's possible in the spring, fine, but if not, then we don't need to be doing those assessments while we're all in virtual land. And also about waiving ESSA accountability on the spring 2021 state summative exams. So there is good pressure, I think, and good brains and minds coming in to try and deal with the testing situation. But again, I just wanted to make sure that all the conversations we have around this have some, bite at the apple of student outcomes when and wherever we can. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I will add that the data dashboards that what Femi shared with you was the summary data for in those graphs. We have dashboards that can tell you exactly which students are online every day. And we've been doing that really since March. And so very much in the beginning of the school year, we worked very closely with principals on why is a student not logging in. We discovered some things that we weren't tracking correctly, and we made some adjustments like Google Classroom, for example. We had kids who were going directly to Google Classroom and bypassing My Backpack. And so, we weren't picking them up. But we've been doing this since March, and we can tell every student, every principal, every teacher which kids are online and which kids are not.
Sorry, making sure, thank you for that, Bill, making sure that that translates again back to the, what are the inputs and the outputs here? What are the, is it really a problem of access and whatnot? But again, trying to establish some public face to that data through the Go teams would be a great way. I think that's really important when people get on a Go team, that they want to be able to understand what's happening in that school, the learning that's happening in that school. So if it isn't happening at every single school, making sure that, that those really intensive details do get shared with the Go teams, and that's advertised so the community can come and pay attention if they need. Thank you all very much.
Chairman Estevez, if I may, just wanted to be also quickly responsive to one of the questions that you asked, Board Member Baldwin, particularly around ADA, average daily attendance. We're right at about 86.3. We're right at 86.3%, which is about 6 points lower than we were last year this time. So I just wanted to acknowledge that as a data point, just based on the question that you've asked, and that's from our virtual engagement.
And I would add to that our lowest grades by far are pre-K and K, the younger grades.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I would also add, Femi didn't give you the numbers, but it's such an amazing number to me that I'd just like to add to the slide where he told you about the number of devices. If we go back a year or so and add in a tablet to read and the T-Mobile partnership that's very similar to our Verizon partnership, if we add what we already had in the field and what we have added to that, it's over 48,000 devices are in homes today. That's almost every kid in the district as an average. So obviously we get repairs, we have a turnaround, and then if you look at hotspots, it's over 15,000 hotspots that are in homes today.
May I just want to, as Bill shared that information, I wanted to just lift an opportunity that I'll acknowledge as superintendent that we sit in specifically as it relates to technology and where technology meets our students and our teachers in the classroom. When we start to find ourselves at a space where we can acknowledge that level of capacity with device accessibility, whether it is a Chromebook or an iPad or otherwise, or even the hotspots, just in past work, knowing that the one-to-one learning environment and the right professional development that empowers students and teachers to co-create together in this space, the pandemic has forced us to look at that by way of virtual learning. But I look forward to us as a school system also seizing the next level of that opportunity. We are poised now because of the one-to-one expansion, because of the training that we heard Dr. Henderson Rosser talk about, because of the ability to track certain data points around engagement, to really look at what that means for the future of learning. And I say that in the space of past practices, to have seen students co-create along with teachers, to flip classrooms, to challenge the traditional, and to know that we are poised to do even more. So much more that we can find our students and our teachers in a place to create things we've never thought about, and not because of a pandemic, but because of our belief around what we should do to help technology and the teaching and learning process meet and marry well. So I just want to say that because so much of our conversation has been grounded in the space the pandemic has put us in. And I just want to remind us that we're also in a different opportunity. And I look forward to, in a collective conversation, I say this in front of our board, but to our administration and those who are watching, be parent, student, or teacher, around what that can look like for APS and for our children and for the future of learning. So I'm very excited to hear what's been shared by this team, and I'm even more excited about the work that really is ahead of us that we've not even thought about. So thank you, Chairman Estevez, to let me just share that.
And I would say that we're extremely thankful to the superintendent and to the board for the support of the LEASE program. I think Dr. Herring and I probably discussed that even before she was officially on board, and she said, sounds great, you have my support, and we really appreciate that very much.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'm equally excited as far as what the future holds. I think we have the team for us to be a leader in that regard, and the pandemic may have accelerated the timeline significantly, but I am excited about what the future holds. I think it's going to be great. So I also wanted to point out Ava and the fact that enrollment has increased, and I think that's only going to continue to go up. I think people utilizing Ava moving forward is going to increase, and as a school system, we have an obligation, I think, to have those opportunities available to our families. I think that's a great resource that we had before, to a certain degree, that we have widely available now, and the pandemic made it so that we can expand and leverage that into the future. So anyways, Bill, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks to your team.
Appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ishay. I am so sorry.
No, I really did have, all my questions were answered. I appreciate you.
Ishay was looking at me like, you're not going to call me?
Ms. Karish, for sharing those exact numbers, because I think that gives me additional information to share out as well. The 48,000 devices and 15,000 hotspots, as we talk about the digital divide. I had one question for clarity, and it was from Michael Lamont. With the assessment piece, you stated that we will be conducting assessments this spring based on federal guidelines, but is that on the state testing schedule? I want to make sure I'm interpreting that right so I can convey that out correctly.
Well, the milestones, for example, the current schedule that we believe is that it's going to begin in February, and that's because it has not been waived by the federal government.
As of yet.
And that would be in person? That would be in person?
Yes, it's required to be in person.
So for everyone here and listening from home.
Yes. So if they're a virtual student, then we're trying to work with schools on how to bring students in to take the milestone.
Yeah, but essentially, without that waiver, without a change in process, whether regardless, if we were to delay opening or not go back or whatever,
We still have to do.
we still have to do this, which is a significant logistical,
Yes.
Challenge.
As of this moment, that is the requirement.
And Chairman Estevez, if I may, again, on the national level, so our conversations have been around, once there is change with the federal administration, looking at the opportunity to perhaps delay or revisit that timeframe has been a part of the dialogue. We just can't speak to what that will look like until after administration changes, but I think that's that's an important point to simply lift. And to that same point, prior to us looking at this window for expanding the face-to-face option, we had done our interventions, just as a reminder, which gives us some model around how it might look if we had to figure out how to get testing in with the challenges of the current federal guidelines. So thank you.
That's it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There is one clarifying point. February is only the end of course tests. For February, it's only our EOCs, our end of course tests for our high school students.
Correct. Thank you.
For our final presentation, Chief Financial Officer Lisa Bracken will provide the board with the monthly financial update, including updates on the fiscal year 2022 budget development process. We see you, Ms. Bracken, and if you are ready, we are ready for you.
Thank you. I just want to verify that you can see my screen and that you can hear me okay.
Right now, your screen is not, there you go. You're up.
Presentation is up. Awesome.
Well,
all right, so good afternoon, Board Chair Estevez, members of the board, Dr. Herring. Today I'll be presenting three topics related to finance.
Yep, sorry about that. I just want to clarify.
Sure.
I don't think we can see your screen. We can see her screen. Okay, never mind. You're good to go. My bad.
Awesome, thank you. First, I'll be providing you with the Consolidated General Fund financials for FY 2021 for all activities occurring in the months of July through November. We'll discuss the need for a budget adjustment, and I'll end with a brief update on the FY 2022 budget development process. So with the next 4 slides, we will cover the FY 2021 Consolidated General Fund financials for the first 5 months of the fiscal year. So far, we've collected about 70.31% of the total revenue budgeted, with local collections at 85.13%, state at 27.09%, and other, which includes the Fund 150 Title I transfer in at 4.36%. Local revenue collections have almost completely caught up to the collections at this time last year, so we're in a really good pace against the projected budget. Last year, by this time, we collected a total of 70.78% of total revenue. And we are currently at 67 sorry, I lost my page a little bit. Let's try this. There we go. So we are currently at, I apologize, I'm navigating multiple screens. Last year, by this time, we collected a total of 70.78% of total revenue. This year, we've collected 67.84%, due in part to the accounting transfer from title to the Consolidated Fund. This timing does not present as a concern, and we will continue to monitor the pace of collections throughout the year. On slide 5, we see the budget to actual expenditures so far for FY 2021. And we have currently spent 33.82% of budgeted allotments, and spending in all functions is appropriate for this point of the fiscal year. Let's see, slide 6. Represents the current spending trend for FY 2021 against the FY 20 trend. All spending is on pace for the current year. The overall spend is lagging the previous year's spend for this month, but is very similar to the spending trend of the final months of FY 2020, when we were also operating in a virtual environment. We expect this trend to flip once we begin to return to in-person working and learning, and we will continue to monitor. If corrections are needed, we'll present those recommendations as part of a mid-year adjustment. Detailed financials can be found in agenda item 10.03. We do have a need for 3 new budget adjustments for this month and 1 correction from last month. We will be increasing the revenue and expenditures in the Consolidated General Fund by $94,545 for Title 6B 21st Century Grant for Barack and Michelle Obama Academy. We're also adjusting special revenue with a $1,195,595 increase to revenue and expenditures for the CARES Act Equitable Services Grant, and a $1,386,272 increase to revenue and expenditures for carryover in the Office of Innovation. Finally, last month we brought to you an adjustment of $3 million for special revenue that, while the funding source is a grant, should have been coded for in SPLOST. Details of these adjustments can be found in Agenda Item 9.01. Agenda Item 10.04 includes the detailed information report for special revenue adjustments less than $1 million that have occurred in December. The final section of my presentation, I'll provide a brief update to the FY 2022 budget development process. I won't spend much time here, as we do spend a lot of time at our Budget Commission meetings discussing the 22 planning process. We did cover quite a bit at our January we will be covering more at our January 21st Budget Commission meeting at 12:15. Advance this slide. So we're excited this year to be really thinking about how we are doing our department budgeting process a little bit differently. We have purchased a tool to help us to build our department budgets that will allow us to better align the dollars with the narrative so that we can link the allocations with our budget parameters, our strategic plans, and our priorities. We are also planning on staggering the department planning process a little after the school budget planning process. So at this time, we are planning to release the department budgets in February, the first week of February. This is the budget planning timeline. As you can see on this slide, we're just kind of talking through that change in our normal process, which does push our school process up just a little ahead of our department budget planning process. For the schools, we plan on releasing those budgets on January 21st. We talked a little bit about the SSF allocation planning process during our November and December Budget Commission meetings. At those meetings, we did discuss the opportunity for principals to weigh in on their enrollment projections for the upcoming year and to choose between a more conservative or a more optimistic enrollment to base their SSF allocations on. Of the 49 elementary and middle schools funded using SSF, 23 have chosen to use the more conservative option, and 26 chose the more optimistic option. We are anticipating a slight reduction in the district's overall Title I allocations and decreases based on this year's October FTE count, which will also impact the school allocations. We've made a decision to lower the threshold from 50% to 40% for Title I eligibility. This will allow for schools to continue to receive Title I funding that otherwise would not have, and it will also bring 2 new schools into the fold. Just as last year, we will continue to use 2 different average salaries for teacher positions, depending on the level of poverty at a school as measured by percentage of students with direct certification. We have determined that for schools with greater than 70% poverty, the average salary for teachers is $63,437, whereas for schools with less than 70% poverty, the average salary is $65,881. By implementing this strategy, we can ensure that funds allocated to schools through the poverty and concentration of poverty weights are able to be leveraged to meet the needs of those students and schools as intended, instead of being tied up in the inflated average salary costs. This chart summarizes the next steps in our budget development process for FY 2022. The next step is really waiting on the governor's State of the State address to kind of get a picture of what's happening with state revenue. We'll be talking through revenue projections more in depth at our January Budget Commission meeting. And so with that, I will conclude my presentation, and I'll be available for any questions that you may have.
questions from board members? And while we wait, I think that, Lisa, can you give us any insight into the latest that we know of the, $2 billion that the state of Georgia is getting from the federal government related to the additional relief, COVID-19 relief, and how much, if any, of that would come to APS?
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Yang, did you want to speak to that?
I think you were giving me the pleasure to speak to that, Lisa, so thank you. I will. From what I understand, we are anticipated to receive an allocation at approximately $89.6 million. So it's referred to now as the CRRSA funding. And so we just got that update not too long ago before we started today's board meeting. So thank you, Lisa, for letting Lisa share that. To that end, I would also say that we recognize the importance to be thoughtful about how, as a system, we would allocate those resources. And so we have started that level of conversation in anticipation thereof, and we'll look forward to being more specific in the coming days around how we can responsibly look at what we can do more of and what we haven't not been able to do relative to this transition during the pandemic.
Great. Thank you. Leslie?
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bracken, for that. And I have a question on slide 11 about the Title I funding threshold. Is that, I guess, when did that go to 50%? How many years ago did it go to 50%? What was it before, and do we anticipate it staying at 40%, or is that just some, COVID number? Or if you could just give me some thinking around that, I would appreciate it.
Sure. I would have to pull together the historical information. I don't have that available to me at this moment, so we can get that to you. And I know that Tahita Baker-Jones, our Chief Equity and Social Justice Officer, and I have begun conversations about strategies for Title I going forward. I know that there's a lot of opportunity and huge ideas coming out of that office about how to best leverage these dollars going forward. And so I think it's too soon to speak to whether or not that threshold will remain at 40% or change going forward. So I think that for this year, we've identified through multiple conversations that this is the right strategy. Mm-hmm. And I think that we'll continue to have to have those conversations before we align on next steps down the road.
Okay, and I don't need you to do any extensive research. I just know that within the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years, correct? That threshold number changed?
It's been since I've been here, so within the last 6 years, we've made that change up to 50%.
Okay, and I know that's a pinch point for some of our larger schools, and so I'm sure they'll be grateful. Thank you.
Cynthia?
On the same slide, what are the 4 schools and the 2 schools?
I thought that would be asked of me, and so I had that emailed, and then I can't find it. Hold on, let me pull that up. Okay, so the 4 schools that will be able to receive continued funding is Tumor, Parkside, Maynard, and Burgess-Pearson. And then the 2 new schools, Garden Hill will actually come back on. You'll recall that they lost Title I status last year, and so they will actually be coming back on, and then we add Drew Junior and Senior Academy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. End on that positive note. Thank you so much, Lisa. With that, I think there is need to enter into executive session to discuss legal matters.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. So with that, we will break and then come back at 6. All right. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the public comment portion of today's meeting. I want to make sure that we are all set to go technology-wise. We're good? All right. As we start the community meeting, I believe, Mr. Gaither, we have 4 speakers, but prior to that, we'd like to make our board member recognition. So I'd like to turn it over to Board Member Erica Mitchell of District 5 to make her presentation. Wherever you, it's probably better to do it from there. Mm-hmm. Turn on your mic.
Good evening, everyone. Today I would like to have the honor to do board recognition, especially at a time like this. Our school district and many school districts across the nation had experienced some challenges and hardship. And one of the community partners for our school district that I would like to acknowledge today is Jasmine Crow. Jasmine Crow is an award-winning social entrepreneur, TED Talk speaker, and leader who is working to make a difference and to make the world a better place, one cause at a time. Jasmine's goal is to foster change and create awareness about the leading socioeconomic issues and challenges of today, including poverty, food waste, and hunger. In 2017, she launched Gooder, a sustainable waste management company that leveraged technology to combat hunger and reduce food waste. She has been featured on CNBC, and Oprah Winfrey Magazine, Forbes, Fast Co., New York Times, and was named Entrepreneur Magazine as one of the 100 top influential female founders. Under her direction, Gooder has redirected nearly 5 million pounds of surplus food for restaurants, event centers, airports, and business to the millions of people who are food insecure. During the pandemic, Gooder provided food distribution for organizations, pop-up grocery stores for communities, as well as launching a grocery delivery program that provides weekly delivery to seniors, to over 2,000 seniors. Since March of 2020, Gooder is responsible for providing over 2 million meals to people in need. Gooder work with APS, provide APS families with free grocery delivery. They host free pop-up grocery stores for family. They provided weekend snacks to APS students and City Hall learning pads. Gooder has worked with APS Nutrition to deliver meals and snacks to school sites every day. I want to invite Board Member Grant to make a few remarks, but after that, I just show you a quick news segment on how we were able to collaborate with Gooder at a time of need when our school district closed. I will say that Jasmine and I had worked together to identify areas where there was food insecurity, food deserts, and also be able to reach those families that didn't have transportation, that were living in hotels or motels, or kids that were living in foster care, just making sure that we were able to reach our vulnerable population. And we were able to do that as soon as our district shut down. So I'm very thankful and very happy that we had the opportunity to work with her, and then that APS is continuing their partnership with Gooder. So I'll swing it over to you, Leslie.
Thanks a lot, and I appreciate the opportunity just to say thank you at this moment, Jasmine. I know that it's really difficult to be a female entrepreneur, and it is very difficult to continue doing what you need to do and what you want to do because you know it's right in the face of pushback. And I just wanted to, again, thank you so much for all that you did and for sticking with it even when things got rough, for multiple reasons. And a couple of weekends ago, drove by Thomasville on a Saturday afternoon and saw your people out there with their giant Saturday afternoon dinner. So you keep on doing what you're doing. It's great.
a really big concern for a lot of these board members. They're really worried that families won't have transportation to get their kids to and from those free lunch sites every day. That's why one board member is teaming up with a nonprofit to close the gap.
These are all receipts from families that were actually going out to the grocery stores and shopping for.
Even though all Atlanta public schools closed Monday, several APS board members were hard at work Sunday night.
So this is a time of need. I don't think it's a time of panic, but I think it's definitely a time of concern.
District 5 member Erica Mitchell held a special meeting with nonprofit Gooder to figure out how to keep kids from going hungry while they're not in school.
That is my biggest fear. I believe food is a human right, and no one should go without food.
APS has multiple lunch and breakfast pickup points open from 10 a.m. to noon Monday through Friday. But some say this isn't enough.
A lot of families don't have transportation, so we want to make sure that we meet them where they are. And so that could be apartment complexes that we would set up and drop off food, or it can just be door to door.
That's where community partnerships, especially this one with Gooder, come into play.
We work with businesses to redirect their surplus food to people in need instead of landfills. So we believe that no one should ever have to decide if food is a necessity in their household.
The organization is looking for neighborhoods in need of food drop-offs for students over the next couple of weeks.
And our team is actually going out into grocery stores, so we're braving the lines, we're standing in them, we're shopping for families and then delivering directly to their doors. So it's like a free Instacart, if you will.
Erica Mitchell says APS is working with the board right now to roll out a specific plan for more food drop-offs and pickup sites. She says she hopes the community will reach out and help.
It's not panic mode, it's more of innovation mode.
And if you'd like to donate food through Gooder, you can purchase groceries for students and their families online without even leaving your house. We have the link to that and many more resources right on our website, fox5atlanta.com.
And can I have Jasmine Crow come up to the front so the full board can recognize you? Thank you.
Candace, Cynthia, if you can come over here. Just, yeah. Right.
Right. There, that work?
Is that good, Pierre?
Yeah, it is. You ready?
Great. Congrats, Jasmine.
Great work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Erica, and congrats again, Jasmine, and thank you for all the hard work that you and your team at Gooder have done for Atlanta and the broader community. With that, let's enter into public comment. Mr. Gaither, will you please facilitate that process?
Good evening and welcome to the public comment portion of tonight's agenda. In just a few moments, the board will begin hearing from those who signed up to speak by 5:50 p.m. The board welcomes your comments, but before we get started, please take note of the following guidelines on how public comment is conducted. The board has allocated 1 hour for public comment, and each speaker will only be allowed to speak once for a total of 2 minutes. The board may elect to hear community comments in any order or sequence consistent with the board policy and is not limited by the order of the sign-up sheets. All speakers presenting highly detailed information are asked to put their comments in writing. In order to maintain meeting decorum, follow appropriate protocols, protect the confidentiality of students, and ensure impartiality, the board will not hear comments on matters involving individual students, parents, or the character, professional competency, or the physical or mental health of any individual. Also, the board will not hear public comment on personnel matters that specifically include the names or titles of employees. This includes, but is not limited to, contract non-renewals, position abolishment, the hiring or firing of staff, and investigative proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct. Comments regarding personnel issues should be sent in writing to Atlanta Board of Education, 130 Trinity Avenue, Southwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 303, or via email at boardcomments@atlantapublicschools.us. With that said, I would like to call the first speaker, Emily Dukes, for 2 minutes. Ms. Dukes?
Yes.
2 minutes.
Can you speak on the phone? Because my internet is.
You may begin.
Can you mute me on the phone?
I'm sorry, repeat that, Ms. Dukes. Ms. Dukes, we'll come back to you to give you an opportunity to get squared away.
My internet is unstable and it's calling.
There's some feedback. Give us a second. We'll come back to you. We just want to make sure that we can. If you have another device on, can you please mute the other device?
Can you hear me better now?
That's much better, but there's still some feedback. So let's give it a shot.
My internet connection is
Okay, that's much
stable.
better.
That's why I asked dialing.
That's much better. Go ahead. You may get started.
Okay. Happy New Year to all. I'm Ms. Dukes with Atlanta Thrive, the leader of Atlanta Thrive. So for the past couple of years, parents have pushed the board to set timelines to intervene at schools where our children are being met. And can you guys hear me? Because it's saying it's unstable.
We can hear you.
Okay. So over the past year, COVID-19 not only has increased the challenges our children have faced with learning and meeting outcomes. Many parents dealing with even greater hardship due to the pandemic continue to face challenges like fighting for our voices to be heard and to have a seat at the table where decisions are being made about our children's lives. And this is why we're here today, to ask the board to go harder for our kids and families in 2021. And we need the board to set a clear bar and measure every school against a detailed framework. We're asking 3 things. Please write this down. 1, parents must receive a written notice that shows the results of the assessment that their children were given. The ask is, give it to us in writing. 2, parents need to know how their children are doing and how the district and school plan will address the individual needs due to the tremendous amount of learning loss. The question is, what is my child's success plan? The ask is, give it to us in writing. 3, parents need adequate training and access to resources so they can support their children with the uncertainty with COVID's new strain. Parents will continue to support teachers with remote learning. The question is, where is consistent ongoing training for parents? And the ask is that you train us parents to support our children. Board, as you work on goals and guardrails, we are still asking for the same things. Please write this down. 1, focus on student outcomes, and 2, set urgent timelines to make changes and set real interventions, not just tutoring. Board, we need you guys to tell us the truth and to be real with us about where our children are. We need accountability. We want to know what is the board responsibility and what is the school responsibility. And we need you guys to move like it was yesterday. It's past time for the board to move with urgency for the sake of...
I'm sorry, Ms. Dukes, we reached the time boundary. If you could, please submit that in writing, and I'll make sure that the board get all of the information that you shared tonight. Our next speaker is Mary Palmer for 2 minutes.
And Mr. Gaither, can we ensure that we are live on Facebook, that they're playing the actual Zoom call? They could hear it? Okay.
Ms. Palmer for 2 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me, guys? Good afternoon.
Yes.
Good evening.
Yes, you may begin.
Okay, thank you. The first thing I like to talk about, I would like to say welcome back, Happy New Year. But let me talk about a couple of things, and I'm just going to try to be bullet because of 2 minutes. Vaccinations. Listen to your work sessions earlier this afternoon, and very concerned about the fact that we are trying to go back in person before we're at 1B. Before the 1B group is able to get vaccinations and to kind of guard against the spread of this disease even further throughout our teachers and our staff, that apparently it looks like only 10% is going to be able to stay at home. I really think that you guys should really reconsider going back in person until we have until the 1B group is being vaccinated. Secondly, I'm concerned about the learning drain that we have because we are doing virtual. I applaud the technology group in their presentation today. It was awesome to hear the things that they were doing, and especially to hear about the one-on-one technology focus that we have earned and worked, and that the group has worked hard for. That's really great. In person, though, I would wish that you all would consider, I do understand that everybody should have their voice and should be considered for what their desires are. I recognize there's a big push across one or two of the clusters to really go back in person. I think if that's what they want, that's what those constituents possibly you should consider giving to them. I ask you to consider, though, only doing one or two clusters that really have the resources and the support to go in person, like the North Atlanta cluster and possibly the Grady cluster or the Jackson cluster if that's what they want. And then take the other clusters where you have one or two parents who really want, because the other side guided, I wanted to. Spend the time and the money to make sure that those people in those clusters go to the clusters that are open, but do not open all clusters, because I don't see where you have a plan in place to effectively make sure the whole district can go in person.
Thank you.
And lastly, money.
I'm sorry, Ms. Palmer, we reached the time boundary. If you could, please submit the rest of your comments in writing. I'll make sure that the board receives them. Our next speaker is Walter Kimbrough for 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Walter Kimbrough. I'm a native of Atlanta. Peyton Forest Elementary School. The last year that Southwest was a high school, and then the first class to go all the way through Mays High School. I presently serve as president of Dillard University in New Orleans, and I was calling to add my support to renaming of the stadium, Grady High School, for Coach Henderson. I've known him personally. He's just been a very important part of my life as a person. I went to school with his son, been to his house. He's a great guy, but I want to speak about it from the point of view of the things that we're doing here in this city of New Orleans. We've done a lot of renaming of streets and facilities to really reflect the current state of our city. And Atlanta is very similar. I know we're rival cities, and it's tough being from Atlanta and living in New Orleans, but there are a lot of similarities that we do have, and this becomes another great opportunity to honor people from Atlanta. I read in the paper not long ago that the name of the school would be changed, and I think this continues that. So just as someone who's gone through that here, we just named a major thoroughfare here that was named after Jeff Davis, after Norman Francis, who was the longest serving president of Xavier University, almost 50 years. So there's a lot of goodwill that could happen as a part of that. So I would encourage the board to look at that opportunity. I think Coach Henderson would be an excellent role model to name that stadium afterward, and I wanted to call to lend my support. So thank you for listening to me this evening.
Thank you. Our next speaker would be Tanaya Weismer, and I want to just make sure. Hello, is this Tanaya or is this Claudine Miles?
This is Claudine.
All right, Claudine Miles, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Claudine Miles, and I just wanted to come in and really speak to the two policies that are being proposed tonight for first read. The first being on restorative practices, and the second being on trauma-informed practices. I wanted to take a moment and publicly thank Erica Mitchell for all of her support, but not just her. Leslie Grant, Candace Wood, Jason Estevez, you guys have all played a role. Ishay, we just genuinely appreciate your support on this initiative, and I want to be clear so that the people can hear it. This started a year year ago in October through community members and myself having house meetings with ACE. And so it started in a really grassroots way. And we reached out to Erica, and the timing was just quite divine. And through that, we've been able to collectively work together as parents, as educators, as leaders to bring forth something that we really believe is great for kids. So I just wanted to come here today and publicly thank each and every one of you for your support that you've lended to this endeavor, and just looking forward to see how things pan out this evening. Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, this concludes public comment.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Gaither, and thank you so much to everyone who came and spoke to us this evening via Zoom. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate your feedback and for connecting with us virtually. We will now move to our legislative session. I want to make sure we're good for that. All right. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us this evening. We always appreciate your feedback, and now that we are moving to our legislative portion of the meeting, I will begin with some official remarks, a few announcements, and then provide Dr. Herring time to do the same. To begin, I want to make sure that we acknowledge the historic week that we had last week for a couple of reasons. One, I want to make sure to acknowledge the election that took place, the special election that took place on January 5th, particularly because APS put such emphasis and targeted emphasis on making sure that we had engagement from our teachers, our staff, students in particular, in our community through the APS Good Trouble Voter campaign. I wanted to shout out Janine Lewis and the social studies team for running that program. It was an amazing program. We had over 900 students newly registered who participated in the November and the January runoffs. With margins as close as they were, I can tell you that those students made a difference. Every single person that voted made a difference. So that is just the start. It was the first year of a partnership with the organization When We All Vote. But I can tell you that as time goes on, that program will become more and more important to the work we're doing, because it teaches our students the importance of civic engagement. It teaches them the importance of their vote, and it teaches them the importance of our democracy and the fact that voting is a key part of that democracy. I must also mention, though, that on January 6th, a lot of that was turned on its head with the attack on the U.S. Capitol building. And over the weekend, the board issued a statement that I'm going to read some of, but I can tell you that I don't want people to get discouraged and face fear or concern or discouragement from the events on January 6th, because I think our primary focus should be on the fact that January 5th happened. And it happened because people engaged. And the goal of the people on January 6th was to discourage people from engaging civically moving forward. And we must never let them win. We got to make sure that we stay involved, that we stay engaged, and that our voices are heard every time we get the opportunity in the ballot box. So the Atlanta Board of Education denounces the assault upon the U.S. Capitol building and our democratic system of government. Unfortunately, we were placed in this position because of failed leadership by our president promoting the treasonous notion that people should take matters into their own hands and attempting what is nothing short of insurrection. We are committed to teaching our students and youngest citizens the attributes and values of a strong democracy, particularly the notions of civility, civic engagement, and citizenship. For our nation to be strong, it is incumbent on us to teach our students the history of our nation and encourage them to understand the importance of our government and its institutions. At the same time, it is important to recognize that our students witnessed a significant disparity in how law enforcement responded to the rioters of the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday versus how they how they responded to peaceful Black Lives Matter protests from last summer. We knew that this disparity existed in our society, but to see it happen when one of our nation's most important institutions was under attack was traumatizing for many. This is a reminder that there is much work for us to do to root out systemic racism in this country. As a board and a school system, we are committed to doing our part and ask that Atlanta's families and staff remain committed to doing their part. As all of you know, we have been calling out inequities and standing up for our students and our families for a long time as a board. And as a school system, we will continue to do that. But it's times like this where we need to make sure we continue to fight together. We need to make sure we continue in this struggle against systemic racism as an APS family, as an Atlanta community. And I know that as we all push together moving forward, we will certainly be a better country and a better state and city in the future. So thank you for indulging me for a moment in that. Also, moving on to a few announcements, wanted to remind parents, teachers, and community members that January is Gifted Education Month, as proclaimed by former Governor Nathan Deal back in January 2014. Annually, the Office of Gifted and Talented Education hosts events to raise awareness and celebrate our gifted students and families. The pandemic has hindered many efforts for this celebration, but APS will be hosting the annual STEAM Carnival for elementary students in a virtual fashion. The event provides activities in science, technology, engineering, art, and math beginning tomorrow, January 12th. The Office of Gifted and Talented Education has also created an interactive virtual exploration activity for families. So check out and learn more at www.atlantapublicschools.us/gifted. I also want to highlight that January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Domestic minor sex trafficking is a global problem that targets and victimizes the most vulnerable kids, particularly girls, boys, and transgender youth across our communities. With a bustling film industry and entertainment industry and one of the world's busiest airports, Atlanta is often ranked as the number one destination for human sex trafficking. As a district, we are committed to doing our part to help end sex trafficking and the exploitation of children in our communities and neighborhoods. I want to shout out in particular Board Member Erica Mitchell for the work that she has done to lead the development of the policy on helping to end minor sex trafficking. The images you are seeing right now while I'm speaking are some of the posters used as part of our awareness programming. We have been working with outstanding partners such as International Human Trafficking Institute, which is part of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights right here in Atlanta. They have provided professional learning for our teachers, school staff, central office teams, police officers, and bus drivers on recognizing the signs of trafficking. In addition, Dr. Jordan Greenbaum from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta has developed a professional learning video for our employees, my apologies, about human sex trafficking. and the signs of trafficking. Please, let's do our part to put an end to this senseless enterprise. With that, that concludes my official remarks. I now invite Dr. Herring to make her own remarks.
Thank you, Chair Estevez, and good evening to the board and all of our students, teachers, staff, families, partners, and the rest of the Atlanta Public Schools community. During the work session, part of our meeting, we provided the board with 4 presentations. As always, the members of Atlanta Public Schools community can review the full presentations online at their convenience, but I will summarize each of them now. As part of her presentation, Dr. Angela King-Smith, our Chief Strategy Officer, once again outlined our application for charter system renewal with the state of Georgia. This operating model has been a crucial part of the success in this district and connects strongly and effectively with the new 5-year strategic plan. She also provided overviews of the cluster planning process and the charter system governance structure. Leaders from the Division of Accountability and Information Technology also provided a thorough report about the progress of their various initiatives. In his part of the presentation, Femi Aina, Executive Director of Information Technology and Strategy and Planning, noted that APS has distributed 24,685 Chromebooks and iPads, as well as 7,305 hotspots since the first day of school, to assure we provided technology to all students in need of it during virtual learning. I am proud that the district negotiated a lease to own one-to-one strategy. I am proud that the district negotiated a lease to own one-to-one strategy to ensure every student had a device as part of a $24.5 million plan approved by this board. During the first semester so far, 99.4% of our students have logged in. We have regularly exceeded a 97% login rate for the past 4 months, so there has been strong participation across all grade levels. Among the initiatives in IT, we have increased internet bandwidth to support a large number of student devices, increasing WAN to schools with a large number of students, rolled out robust content filtering solutions to all student devices through Securely, rolled out Zoom platform to support student instruction, and initiated multiple Lawson ERP improvements. Turning to our data and information group led by Executive Director Michael Lamont, we can report progress on numerous dashboards that monitors intent to return, benchmark data, assessments, attendance, graduation, college enrollment and persistence, and transcript auditing. We are prepared to handle all types of mandated state reporting as well as upcoming assessments. We also completed an integrated approach for successful online learning as explained by Dr. Aaliyah Henderson-Rosser, Executive Director of Instructional Technology. This work focused on digital content resources, content management systems, and online engagement tools. While we certainly relied on prepared materials, I am especially pleased that 87% of our teachers are Nearpod users creating their own interactive lessons. In fact, our teachers created more than 1,000 interactive learning experiences and launched more than 3 million lessons this year compared to only about 60,000 last year. This department provided ongoing student support through Tutor ATL, which also offers bilingual tutoring. We have relied on Atlanta Virtual Academy like never before, with expanded coursework to handle the virtual experience for the first semester. For example, more than 2,600 of our high school students for school year 2020, which is about 20%, took at least one Atlanta Virtual Academy course. We also have a strong library media services, which sponsored Race to Read, with the goal of our community reading more than 10 million minutes by July 2021. And of course, we are building digital bridges through partnerships with groups like Get Our Kids Connected, Verizon Innovation Learning, and T-Mobile's Project 10 Million. It's amazing work, and congratulations to our team. For her presentation, Chief Financial Officer Lisa Bracken provided the board with the monthly financial update, including updates on the fiscal year 2022 budget development process. For our main presentation, we provided an update on Phase 2 of Return Plus Learn, which involves reopening our buildings and schools to staff, teachers, and students. We based our efforts on 4 concepts: plan, process, people, and protect. The plan involves 3 learning models: site-based virtual learning, face-to-face, and Atlanta Virtual Academy. Process involves a deliberate schedule of how we bring staff and students back into our buildings. The phased-in approach includes teacher preparation days and phasing in elementary students first, followed by secondary students. People involves providing our teachers and staff with the guidance, work conditions, and health and safety measures that allow them to do their best work into the rest of the school year. Protect means we will continue to work proactively to keep our students and staff safe in this COVID-19 environment by focusing on how we mitigate for all safety and health risks. As we explained in the presentation, Phase 2 actually started today, as district office staff return to in-person work on staggered schedules. School-based staff are scheduled to return on Tuesday, January 19th, for a 4-day schedule. On Monday, January 25th, we plan to begin phasing in our pre-K through 2nd and special education low-incident students from all grades who wish to return now for in-person instruction. Again, that's about 34% of our overall traditional school population. On Monday, February 1st, students in grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10 who opted for face-to-face instruction will return. Thursday, February 4th, students in grades 7, 8, 11, and 12 who wish to return to classrooms would then begin. Again, we plan to reserve Wednesdays as an asynchronous or independent learning day for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year. On these days, students will engage in independent learning and intervention, staff will engage in professional learning and student intervention, and teachers will plan and prepare for simultaneous teaching. Also, as a reminder, our operations department will focus on meal deliveries on Wednesdays, deep cleaning, and the continuation of COVID testing. Again, I invite our community to review the presentation made earlier today and to regularly visit our Return Plus Learn website at www.atlantapublicschools.us/reopen. We make updates to the site regularly and provide our comprehensive on-course guide, health and safety guidelines, FAQs, and more. And finally, Chairman Estevez, I'd just like to thank you for the position that our board has taken regarding the events of this past week, and would like to extend a reminder to parents that we did put out information and tools to help you talk to your children should there be questions or even emotions tied to the challenges and the frustration that surfaced throughout our country. Mr. Chair, that concludes my remarks for this evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Herring, and would you please go ahead and present the consent agenda?
Thank you, Chair Estevez. Before I submit the consent agenda, I want to direct your attention to 2 items. First, item 5.02 asks the board to ratify prior actions taken during virtual meetings. As you know, from October 2020 through December 2020, this board held meetings virtually due to the COVID-19 global pandemic in accordance with the Georgia Open Meetings Act. The board appropriately voted and took action at those meetings. Again, we are asking that you ratify those actions now that we have resumed live and in-person meetings. I also want to note item 5.03, in which I have made a recommendation that the board approve the charter renewal petition of Atlanta Neighborhood Charter School for a 5-year term. This current term expires on June 30th, 2021. As you know, Atlanta Neighborhood Charter School is a K-8 charter school with 2 campuses serving the Grant Park and Ormwood Park neighborhoods since 2002. The school serves about 675 students. In review of this petition, we have been pleased with the school's performance as its students consistently perform higher than the district and state averages. Mr. Chair and members of the board, I am pleased to submit consent agenda items 5.01 through 8.01 to the board for approval.
Thank you so much, Dr. Herring. I want to make sure that board members are logged in to board docs. So let me look at my board members online. Yep, okay, all right. Great. Can I get a motion to approve agenda items 5.01 through 8.01?
Second.
It's been properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Erica Mitchell. Any questions, discussion? Going once? Going once, going twice. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Where did Sandra come from? That was like magic. It hasn't popped up.
No, it didn't pop up.
It did? I actually see it on my screen.
I don't see it.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed, put your hand up and say nay. Okay. Passes unanimously. Yeah, for whatever reason, Sandra did not come up. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. It's up on my screen.
All right. Next up is discussion and action 9.01. Can I get a motion to approve?
Second.
Been probably moved by Michelle Olympiadis, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. Is there any discussion? Okay. Let's open up the vote. See it that time.
Okay, the vote is open.
Oh, I see it that time.
Okay.
You do? Oh, yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Okay, the vote is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. We will now move to committee reports. Report out from board committee. Let's start with Leslie and audit.
No report out. We will have a meeting next week and plan to be joined by our new community audit advisor. I'm excited about that.
Great, thank you. Michelle, budget?
Yes, we had the update in today's presentation, so I'd really like to encourage the public to go through that PowerPoint and join us next Thursday at 12:15 for our committee meeting.
Great, thank you. Candace?
Yes, we met on the 19th and had the opportunity to look at several policies, including the two incredible policies that we passed today on first reading, restorative practices and trauma-informed practices. And we will be meeting, I guess it is next week, then the 21st, Thursday in person.
Great. Cynthia, board development?
We will be meeting next week. We will be discussing the board development calendar for the upcoming year. I think the first event on that calendar will be the end of next month, when we will continue our work on student outcomes-focused governance. In addition, we will be getting to work for real on the board governance manual, which we expect to have finished before the end of this fiscal year.
Great, thank you so much. We will now move to report out from board conferences. Leslie, did you want to read the statement?
Yep, I do. So I am just we got an invite recently. I'm on the executive committee of the Council of Great City Schools, which is the large urban districts in the nation. We have an executive committee twice a year, meeting, well, 4 times a year, but by itself twice a year, and that will be virtual next, the 22nd and 23rd. If anybody is interested in the public piece of that, then let me know. We can get you a link. But one of the big shifts that is happening in public education is that Michael Casserly is retiring as the executive director of the Council of Great City Schools. He has led that, led the council for 60 years or more, and done a phenomenal job in pulling together the passion and purpose and putting policy and the right folks in place to influence what is happening at the nation's largest school districts. And so I wanted to make sure that I read into the record, in case you said earlier I was being ominous and ending this on this note, but I just want to make sure that this is read into the record. This was penned by Michael Casserly and from the executive committee of the council on January the 7th. This was released, but it is a statement on the events of January 6, 2021, a new day of infamy. On behalf of the nation's urban public school leaders by the Council of Great City Schools. School leaders, teachers, and educators from the nation's urban public schools condemn the actions of the violent rioters who stormed and desecrated the Capitol at the encouragement of our president and his enablers. Make no mistake, this was not an attack on the Capitol building, but on democracy itself. Citizens of the world are watching this display of lawlessness with shock and horror as the world's beacon of civility, the shining city upon a hill, is reduced to a crime scene. Public school educators everywhere teach our children to respect our leaders, our institutions, and the process by which we as a nation choose our representatives, and we weep now with the loss of innocence and trust these events have wrought. Defiling our Capitol and disrupting the work of the People's House and Senate in an effort to overturn a free and fair election is a betrayal of our founding principles. Unfortunately, we are in this position because our president has lied repeatedly to the American public about who won this election and has promoted the treasonous notion that people should take matters into their own hands in attempting what is nothing short of insurrection. As we struggle to help our children understand how this happened and what it means, we should be clear about our collective outrage and our commitment to restoring peace and democracy in the months and years to come. Our students have lost so much over the past year, and now they must reconcile what they have been taught about the ideals of this democratic nation with the criminal attacks they are witnessing unfold in our capital. The process of rebuilding and healing our country is now a great challenge, the great challenge of our lifetimes. And the nation's public school educators welcome our responsibility and charge to work toward a brighter future on behalf of our students and our country. Thank you for allowing that into the record.
Great, thank you so much. Leslie, are there any other report outs?
No.
All right, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown, seconded by Erica Mitchell. Any discussion about that move to adjourn? No? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right. Good night. Good night. Meeting adjourned.